580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you on 580 Sports Talk from now until 6 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thrilled to be chatting with you, and we've got plenty to chat about on the program today. We'll get to the Kansas City Chiefs to lead things off in just a moment, and how big of an impact, good or bad, the newcomers have made for the Chiefs team this year. And you could probably guess this, but it's been really, really good. So we'll address that coming up here in just a little bit. We've got more NFL coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. A little bit of a how-to guide for the biggest contenders to reach the Super Bowl. These teams, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, the Vikings, etc., will win the Super Bowl if what? Dan and I have your answers to that question and those questions coming up in the 4 o'clock hour today. Plenty of college football, plenty of college basketball to get to you over the course of the program. Tonight is the Champions Classic. KU versus Duke in the nightcap. Kentucky versus Michigan State in the opener. KU Duke is scheduled for 8:30, so we're probably looking at about a 9 o'clock tip for that game, I would assume. We will preview that game. We'll take a look at Michigan State versus Kentucky as well. By the way, do you know who is the winningest team all time at the Champions Classic in 11 years?
Is it Kansas?
It is not. Kansas is second.
Kentucky.
Kentucky is third.
Really?
Really?
Well, it's not Michigan State.
It is not Michigan State.
No,
Duke is 7-4.
Okay.
Yeah. KU is 6-5. Kentucky is 5-6. Michigan State 4-7.
How
Fun
about
fact
that?
for you. Not a surprise. Michigan State is last. When can we just punt them for North Carolina? Well, see, you can't have North Carolina play Duke, though, is the problem.
Yeah, it works nice because it's not a conference game for anybody on the rotation. I would have suggested throwing Villanova in back when Jay Wright was their coach, but Jay Wright left. And did they come back and beat Delaware State last night?
I believe they did. I'm pretty sure they did.
It's not a good sign.
60-50. They only scored 60 against Delaware State.
Good for them. That's a break because they lost to Temple. They've already lost to Temple. I don't know, like UCLA.
Yeah,
Indiana,
UCLA would make sense.
Like
any of the the Indiana, Michigan State.
Well, no, just dump Michigan State.
Oh, that's true.
Get Michigan State out of the paint,
get them out of here. No, that's fine. Yeah, Indiana, I think would have made more sense. Although I guess Michigan State's been more successful recently. But hey, speaking of Villanova, at least they didn't barely beat a team in the KenPom bottom 10, only to then actually lose to a team in the KenPom bottom 10 or 20 this week.
Are you talking about a certain Big 12 team in particular?
I am talking about a certain Froggy team. All those Hypnotoad memes, keep those with the football team.
Right.
KenPom early in the year, and not quite as accurate because it's kind of built on, returning production and things like that. TCU, though, fell like 30 spots in a week. And they lost to Northwestern State, which, by the by, is ranked 343rd out of 363 teams. That's 21st worst in the country. They barely beat Arkansas Pine Bluff, which is 355th, actually bottom 10. That's what TCU is doing right now. So at least they're not them. We've got some good basketball in theory coming up tonight. And again, we'll preview that game. We'll also talk some KU football and basketball with Michael Swain coming up at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for our 23rd Street Brewery Jayhawk Weekly. And we've got some K-State news to get to this hour as well. Some big injury updates. Certainly not good for one player. Really not good for two different players, although one of them, maybe it's a blessing in disguise kind of situation. We'll talk about that, plus our predictions for the college football playoff rankings and some awards news as well. Bottom of the hour here on 580 Sports Talk. We've got Random Question Tuesday. What is wrong with you? 580 Sports Talk headlines. Oh, and by the way, some incredibly aggravating Royals news as well. That's coming up later on in the show. If you are opposed to the Royals continuing to pay and play actively bad Major League Baseball players,
today was not a good day for you.
Yeah, we got some tough news for you about a certain player whose name rhymes with Shmayan O'Mern. Not great for you. So we'll get to that later on in the program as well. As always, you are welcome to be a part of the show on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. And if you would like to chime in as well on the Sports on 580 YouTube comments. That's right. We are live streaming every show. We are now in week 3 of live streams for every show. Week 3 of an infinite number. So go check us out on YouTube. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of the account. Subscribe, bookmark, favorite, make it your homepage, save it on your phone, whatever it takes. And if you comment, we will be able to see it right here in front of us.
I think the word you were looking for there was an indefinite number. Certainly,
I'm not going to die.
Certainly,
I will
have
live
my
forever.
doubts about my ability to do this show infinitely.
I have some days I'm kind of wondering, like, can the current internet ecosystem survive like a week? We already know one website we use quite a bit might not. We can wake up tomorrow and Twitter could be gone. Twitter could be gone by 5 o'clock today.
It
we
could.
have no idea.
Like every time I hit the blue bird button for the app on my phone and it pops up and there are tweets for me to read, it is a small miracle.
So is YouTube going to be around forever? Hard to say, honestly. Everything feels kind of fleeting on the internet right now. But
we'll
as long
find
as we
something
can,
else.
We'll be live streaming.
We'll beam it into your brains if we have to.
We will call Scotty from Star Trek and we will beam it up. Let's get into it with the Kansas City Chiefs, though, for today. I was thinking about this. I saw a piece on PFF about grading the rookies, the first-round picks, after Week 10. So I thought it was going to be a full season analysis. No, it was just like weekly player grades. So that was not quite what I was expecting. But that did spark my interest. And I thought, if we take a look at all of the pieces that the Chiefs added this year, whether it be rookies, whether it be free agents, and especially now trades, when you consider Kadarius Toney, and he was really the catalyst for all of this on this show today. How good have the newcomers been for this Chiefs team? And before I even dove into the player-by-player results here, I thought, I feel like it's been pretty good. Like I feel like the rookie class has been solid. Toney obviously had a good day. A couple of names on defense we talked about. Carlos Dunlap has been good. I listed out all of the major additions the Chiefs had made. Like, okay, I didn't put Deion Bush on the list. Okay, special teamer. Like, all right, he didn't get included. But all the draft picks and all the key veteran, quote-unquote, additions. I know Kadarius Toney is only in his second year, but he's been around. He's not a rookie. It was a trade. So be it. If you look through all of the additions the Chiefs made this offseason and what they have contributed now, I think there is a very strong argument. This is so far the best offseason that Brett Veach has had, or the best year of GMing, front officing that Brett Veach has had with the Kansas City Chiefs. You take a look at this rookie class, all right? Just going all the way down the list. Trent McDuffie missed some time, unfortunately, due to injury, but when he's been on the field, he's been pretty good. Do you think he played well this week?
Yeah, I did.
I thought so.
He's making plays on balls down the field. He's doing the hard stuff well. He's not noticeable in the negative ways that a defensive back can be noticeable.
Especially a rookie.
Yes, like getting called for a bunch of penalties or giving up a bunch of big plays down the field. No, I think Trent McDuffie's really good. I know we've only gotten fleeting glimpses of him because he missed such a big chunk of the first part of the season before the bye. But yeah, for me, Trent McDuffie, he is a starting NFL cornerback from day one. That's a win.
Almost feels a little bit like L'Jarius Sneed, his rookie year, where you look, Bill, dang, this looks like a real player. Then he got hurt, broke his collarbone, missed 8 weeks. And I was like, man, we got to get him back. And then he came back and, oh man, this is a real piece. And he's been very solid to good ever since. Also in the first round, George Karlaftis only has a half a sack. 11 pressures is probably about where you'd think a decent rookie would be off the edge. His motor is crazy, though. He plays a bunch of snaps. He's been good.
I feel like I've noticed him every week.
Yes, absolutely.
Like he's done at least something to be noticeable. He had the 2 passes defensed in this past game, couple of deflections at the line. I don't know if you heard him on the Chiefs Kingdom show last night. We carry here on the Chiefs Radio Network on 580 WIBW. He was hanging out with Mitch Holtis at the High V, which, man, goals. But they were talking to George, and they were asking him because he has that water polo background. It was a very funny interview. They were asking him about which Chiefs players would make good water polo players, and he named like 4 or 5 guys, like Travis Kelce because he's got long arms, and Chris Jones because he's physical, and Willie Gay because he's fast. And then he says, "I guess myself because I've actually played."
That's pretty funny.
So it was pretty funny, pretty self-effacing. I enjoyed the interview a lot. But they were talking about, too, making plays at the line, doing more than the stuff that shows up in the stat sheet. And I think he's done enough of that to feel good about him as a contributor moving forward. I would have liked to have seen more sacks. I think that's fair to say. I would have expected a little more production in that department, but he flashes on a week in, week out basis. And I think that's for a bottom of the first round draft pick. He's getting regular rotation snaps and making some plays. I think that's a positive outcome for him.
No, I agree with you there. Second rounders. Sky Moore's a work in progress. I think that's fair to say. Can't write him off. That'd be crazy. Work in progress, though, has not been a major contributor. Well, unfortunately, his biggest contributions have been negatives so far in the punt game.
Yeah, I don't even know if you can call him a minor contributor. And I have to say this about Sky Moore. We've been saying all year, man, it feels like the Chiefs offense could really use a player with his skill set, the ability to run crisp routes, get off the line, beat man coverage. And when you think about rookie wide receivers, it often takes them some time to get on the field and start making an impact. Even Justin Jefferson didn't start right away in his NFL career. Like
Devontae Adams was not good his first 2 years.
Like BC Johnson started over Justin Jefferson first couple of weeks of his NFL career. So it's just, there is a learning curve for rookies. The fact that Kadarius Toney has come in 2 weeks and made this kind of impact suggests to me that maybe there's more to it than just Sky Moore not being able to pick up Andy Reid's offense. And that's not me pushing the panic button. It's me asking a question.
I think it's fair.
I think it's a question that's been raised by the fact that Kadarius Toney could come in and in 3 weeks of being with the team could become a contributor, where we're still waiting for it with Sky Moore. And there have been, a glimpse here, a glimpse there, but I think we expected a little bit more, no pun intended, from Sky to this point, and a little surprised we haven't gotten it yet, and starting to wonder if maybe there's more to it than just, he's a rookie having trouble adjusting.
The other second rounder so far, Brian Cook, you and I both super high on Cook going into the year, has made, had flashes defensively. You see him out there. He's making plays, doesn't do anything that's a huge negative. He's a core special teamer already. He's been on every special team snap from the very beginning. So that's a good late second round pick so far. It feels like, Juan Thornhill's future is obviously up in the air. Justin Reed's not super long-term under contract, just 3 years, really just 2. So future piece for sure, but so far has been fine. That's a good addition. That's a good solid core glue guy. Third round, Chanel had his first sack this past week. Is he better than Ben Neiman? Yes. Okay. Honestly, that was addition by subtraction, just not having Neiman.
Right.
But Chanel's been fine. He's your third linebacker in a team that normally only uses 2. Like, that's totally fine. Fourth round, Joshua Williams has been great for what he was expected to do. That's
he's now a starting cornerback.
Darian Kennard has only been active for 1 game this season. That one
looks like a red shirt year for him. But you know what? Sometimes that happens with a 5th round pick.
Yeah, it happens sometimes. Also, the 7th rounders. This is unbelievable success for 3 7th round picks. Jalen Watson, starting caliber cornerback right now. I don't know how high his ceiling is, but right now he is good enough to start and play regularly in the NFL. Isaiah Pacheco is your starting running back. That one's not entirely a surprise given what he looked like in camp, but still, that's a huge hit for a 7th rounder. Najee Johnson's been active for 3 games. That was always kind of we got to pick someone. But hey, the fact he's even been active for 3 games, that's something. That draft class looks great so far. There's no true, I guess Karlaftis could be because edge rusher is a flash position now. There's no one who's like, oh my God, this looks like a true superstar. That's a really solid group of draft picks. Really solid. And for a GM that has had some great hits, but also a handful of misses, that's a very solid class. And a lot of guys who are contributing right away. You don't usually get, at least 4, 5, that's like 7 guys who are to some degree contributing every week.
And helping.
Yes.
Not just out there because they have to be, out there because injury forced them to be, out there because they've got nobody else to fill the role. They're helping. They're making positive contributions to winning efforts on a week-in, week-out basis. You've got Ian McDuffie, Karlaftis, Williams, Watson, and Pacheco. 5 guys right now that can start NFL games and could be starting in a lot of other places nobody would blink an eye. In Cook, you have the first choice coming off the bench when you go to the 3 safety look. In Chanel, you have the 3rd linebacker, and I think there's still some hope for Sky Moore as well. Yeah, this has been a tremendous debut for this rookie class. I think you have to be really, really pleased with what you've seen. Down the stretch, obviously, health for McDuffie is the biggest thing. Maybe a little bit more pass rush production for Karlaftis we'd like to see in the second half of the season. But I think by and large, you have to be really, really happy with what this group has produced.
Really good early returns. Then you look at the veterans they've added, or the non-rookies at least. And again, here's just the key ones. Kadarius Toney, we went over that a bunch yesterday, already making an impact. Chiefs are already clearly keen on getting him the ball, getting him in space, using him in a variety of roles. That's obviously an impact addition for, what did they move for him? A late pick? I don't even remember what the trade was, what they gave up for him. It doesn't really matter because it looks like it's a good move, at least so far. 3rd round compensatory pick and a 6th round pick. Okay, yeah, who cares? Like that. If Tony's a player, fine. That's great.
Small potatoes, yeah.
Your other additions. Juju Smith-Schuster looks like a number 1 receiver. And I hope the Chiefs bring him back because he has been a perfect fit with this team.
If they can make it work for him on a long-term deal, if he's not looking for something like Tyreek Hill got, like Devontae Adams got money-wise, then 100% he should be back with the Chiefs.
Absolutely.
100%. He has been terrific. You heard Mitch Holtis gush about him on our program last Thursday, how great, the word he used was tremendous, how tremendous he's been in the locker room, in the huddle, on the sideline, and then you get to his statistical contributions. Been a terrific addition for the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's really been fantastic.
One of those that I'm sure there are front offices around the league wondering, how do we let him get to the Chiefs?
Yeah, absolutely. Then also wide receiver, MVS. I mean, he's been what MVS has always been. He's been a go deep guy. He's a great blocker. He's great. Teammates love MVS. He's a second or third receiving option. Like, that's fine. That's a fine piece. He's done what he was asked to do. That's fine. By the way, with how good Juju's been, you bring him back, you could have Juju, in theory, MVS. There's an out after this year. I think they probably keep him around for one more year. Juju, MVS, Kadarius Toney, all coming back for another year, plus obviously Kelsey, plus obviously Sky Moore. That's a pretty good core to build from.
I think so, too.
That's a really good core to build from for your wide receiver group. Something that you thought could be a major hole next year. Now looks like it might be something of a strength. Then defensively, Carlos Dunlap has been useful, I think. I mean, he's not in his prime right now, but he's more of a spot player. But the last 2 or 3 games, he's been in the backfield constantly. It looks like he has really gotten in the flow of things a little bit more.
He's still got some juice. And
especially if he doesn't have to go every snap.
Right. His role is better as a rotational player. And the last couple of weeks, we've seen him maybe a little overextended in that regard because Frank Clark has been out. But as a rotational pass rusher and a veteran with a lot of respect in the locker room, I don't know if you saw the video of his teammates mobbing him on the sideline when they showed on the Jumbotron at Arrowhead that he had accumulated his 100th career sack on Sunday. That was a pretty neat moment. It just goes to show, even in just half a season with the team, just how well respected a guy like Carlos Dunlap is. He's been a positive addition to the team for sure.
Yeah, so that's a definite win. And then you throw in Justin Reed, who I don't think Reed's been great. He hasn't been bad. He's been fine.
He's not making plays. Like, the playmaking of Tyrann Mathieu was always going to be the hardest thing to replace about him.
Yes.
That Tyrann could go make a play, would intercept some passes or force a fumble and be impactful in that way. Justin Reed has been much more of much less of a playmaker at that position. Just be where you're supposed to be and make the play you're supposed to make kind of safety.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not a havoc creator, a hellraiser, a honey badger at the position necessarily. But I think doing the job that he's cut out to do, I think he's been fine. It hasn't been spectacular returns. Would have liked to have maybe seen a pick or two by this point in the season for a safety, but
especially given how much he's been targeted. He's been targeted 34 times and has allowed 24 catches this year.
But are we noticing him a lot in a negative way?
No.
I mean, that's the other big question you have to ask about a defensive player. Are we noticing him in a negative way a lot? And the answer to that is no. So, yeah, we have gone through this entire list. There's nobody here that has been a high-profile addition to this Chiefs team that's taking anything off the table.
No.
That's been a net negative. That has been worse than whoever it was that they were replacing.
This feels like a home run after home run, 27 Yankees kind of lineup offseason for Veach. Like, there's no true misses here. And we've got, like, when you're looking 4th round and later, your day 3 draft pick specifically, honestly, if you get any amount of, in the 4 years you get those guys, if you get any sort of production for any of those years, it's pretty much a win. Pacheco's going to play out at least a couple years with this team as the starting or a starting running back. Like, that's already a huge hit. Joshua Williams is already a hit for a 4th rounder. Those guys you probably want to keep around because 4th round is kind of the rounds you build your roster with, but that's already a huge hit. If you just had those two, that is a big win for your day 3 picks. Also throw in Jalen Watson, who is a starting quarterback in the NFL right off the rip, despite being a 186th pick or whatever he was. Like, that's it would have been 223, I think is what Watson was. So you've got all those hits. The top guys have been good. The free agents were smart moves. They were great fit moves. I really do think this has been the best offseason yet, or best throw in Tony, so mid-season so far for Brett Veach.
It's why they feel like a better team now than they did at this time last season.
They feel more complete, don't they?
Yes.
Like,
is the defense spectacular? They're not the 85 Bears. They're not the 2013 Seahawks or the 2015 Broncos defensively, but they don't have to be.
Yeah.
I think they've been better than last season on the defensive side.
I would agree with that. They're not getting you killed out there. We had this discussion just a few weeks ago. How close is the Chiefs defense to being good enough to win a Super Bowl? Right now, are they good enough to win a Super Bowl? The way they're playing right now? Absolutely they are. No doubt about that. We've got more NFL to get to coming up in just about an hour as we look to what it's going to take for the biggest favorites in the NFL to win the Super Bowl this year. That's coming up just about 45 minutes to an hour from now. Right now, though, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back, play a little Random Question Tuesday here on 580 Sports Talk. Back on 580 Sports Talk, time for a little random question Tuesday here on the show. I know your stance on pickles. Not a pickle guy.
They suck. Get them out of my face.
This was inspired, though, by Jake and Fulton, their list today, midway through their 1 o'clock hour on Mic'd Up. They were doing favorite burger toppings.
Uh-huh.
Where do you stand on tomato? As a burger topping or just in general?
I'm pro tomato, largely.
Jake was mad that I said my number one burger topping is tomato because I always have it on there.
I generally prefer to have a tomato. I like it to be a good tomato. If it's, a little mealy, or if it's really underripe, that can be a huge bummer.
Yeah.
But if it's, perfectly juicy, it can very much complement a hamburger. I also like it as a complement to salad, and certainly as a big base ingredient in like a good pico de gallo or fresh salsa.
Yeah, I'm put tomato on everything.
Yeah, I'm pro tomato for sure.
Okay, well, that's good. What would you put, by the way, as your top burger topping?
Top burger topping. If it's like, if I made it, like if I grill myself a hamburger, and I'm going to get hungry talking about this, but I like a tomato, a little onion, a little bit of lettuce, ketchup, mustard, mayo. I just go with
mayo.
Yeah, I do. I am pro mayo on hamburgers. Yes.
I'm anti-mayo in general, so I don't go with mayo. My very basic, if I'm eating them at home, this is what I put on there, would be bacon, tomato, pickle. I don't always have bacon, though, so I always have tomato and pickle. Sometimes I'll go tomato and ketchup, but then you get a little too tomatoey. But yeah, that'd be my usual. Cheese. I have cheese on it if I make it at home. If
I go anywhere and there's pickles anywhere near my plate, my wife will take those off my hands. It's very nice.
Oh, so does she like pickles?
Yes, okay. She's pro pickle. I am not.
So do you, prior to giving them to your wife, were you like Al Michaels? Like, if I know there was a vegetable on my plate, I can't just take it off the sandwich. I have to send it back.
No, I'm not like that.
I love Al Michaels. Between the nihilist play-by-play he now does on Amazon and also sending back sandwiches that had lettuce on them.
Man, this wasn't my random question Tuesday, but this topic reminded me of something I saw on Twitter the other day.
Okay.
And somebody ran a poll question. I'd have to dig to find out what the answer or the response to the poll was. But they said, if you could get all of the nutrients from them from other food sources, would you still eat vegetables?
Yes. Yeah, I would. Not to sound too Al Michaels-y here, but there aren't a ton of vegetables I eat. Like, I hate carrots. Like, if I could get beta carotene from eating like dirt, I'd rather eat dirt than a carrot. Like, disgusting. Vile food.
Wow. You dip them in like ranch or blue cheese even?
No, gross. Bad. Like in a soup where they're cooked to nothingness is essentially the only way I can stomach a carrot. Disgusting food. Like there are certain things where lettuce is good. Like this is the least healthy way to eat it, but I like some iceberg lettuce because I like the crunch to it. So there are some things where having a piece of lettuce on it is helpful. BLT, get the crunch in it. I like broccoli just as broccoli, and I like the taste of asparagus too.
Boy, get both of those out of my face.
Oh man,
if I didn't
grilled
have
asparagus, yum.
If I didn't have to, I would never eat anything green for the rest of my life.
I have a sibling, my older sister, who legitimately does not eat green food. She's like, wow, why do I have an iron deficiency? Well, because you haven't eaten a vegetable since you were 6 years old. Like, that's why. But she's not listening. It's fine. Like, I genuinely enjoy broccoli and asparagus. Like, I would eat those with every meal. And I like cauliflower, too. Although I'm kind of alone on that. And there aren't a lot of people that seem to like cauliflower. Just a little steam, a little seasoning.
A lot of seasoning, because otherwise there's not no flavor.
Fair enough. But yeah, I still would. But I only eat a few anyway. Like, I'm not going to say, ooh, you know what? I'm going to eat a radish just because. Like, no. Is that a vegetable?
Radishes?
Yeah.
I would presume that would qualify as a vegetable, unless it's one of those weird deals like a tomato where it's in the fruit family.
Technically, pickles are fruits.
You know what else pickles are? Trash. God's mistake.
An edible root vegetable. A radish is an edible root vegetable, officially,
Okay.
according to the scientists at Wikipedia.
I don't believe I've ever eaten a radish in my life.
I don't know if I have.
I don't believe I've ever eaten a turnip in my life. I don't believe I've ever eaten a beet in my life.
All right. So when I was a kid, speaking of beets, we used to eat jarred pickled beets with dinner, like a weird amount. At least I remember eating it a lot, and I kind of liked them. And then I hadn't eaten a beet since I was like 12. And then Abby and I went to this steakhouse in Kansas City a couple years ago now. We went for an anniversary dinner. Really good place. Shout out to Jess and Jim's in Martin City. But they have these little pink things on the table. I'm like, what is that? I was like, oh, these are beets. Like, they'll give you a loaf of bread. They give you a tray of beets at the table. It was very odd. I had never seen it before.
I would call all of the letter organizations, FBI, CIA, DEA. I'd call all the alphabet boys. JAG. I'm calling them all.
JAG.
I'm calling them all, man.
I want Mark Harmon at my table.
Get these out of my face. So carrots then is the answer, like, to the one vegetable you won't eat?
No, I will not eat them.
See, I got a long, like, I've never eaten eggplant. I won't do zucchini. I won't do, and like people say, well, why don't you want to eat those things? Because I don't. Well, they're good. No, they're not. You're lying. I don't believe you.
Zucchini is okay. I can live with zucchini, but I don't.
People
need to know
fry it into oblivion.
I need to know that I'm eating it, because if you don't tell me that it's zucchini, I'm gonna think it's cucumber, and they taste very different.
They do. That's a fact.
And I like cucumber better. I like cucumber. Well, that's a fruit too, technically, but technically.
Cucumber, like, if I accidentally eat a cucumber, I will deal with that better than if I accidentally eat a pickle. I know pickles are fruit. No, it's not really I know we've moved off the pickle conversation.
Fair
enough, I just want to, again, register my distaste for pickles.
So if you were given a list, like, here's 50 vegetables, you have to eat 49 of them. One of these, though, you are allowed to avoid. What would it be?
Probably broccoli.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It sucks so bad.
Ah! No!
Yes.
Oh, it's so good.
It's like eating a tree.
Well, yeah, if you eat it raw, you cook it. We put steak seasoning on it. It's pretty good. Air fryer, pretty good. Oh, you got to be careful. It burns real fast in the air fryer. That dehydrates very quickly.
I bet.
Put it in a skillet, a little butter, a little seasoned salt.
My wife likes it, so she thinks I'm crazy too. But no, it's just no, can't do it, man.
We have a texter from the 785 who asks, where does sauerkraut rate? I do not eat sauerkraut. My dad, apparently more in touch with our Polish heritage than myself, will eat sauerkraut and has been known to occasionally order sandwiches at restaurants and ask for extra kraut, which I cannot do.
Yeah, I'm not a sauerkraut guy. It's the smell for me. I can't do it.
That's fair. My wife likes sauerkraut, though. Not for me. Not for me. We've got to take a quick break here on 580 Sports Talk, but when we come back on the other side of this timeout, got some college football news to get to. KU and K-State assistants are up for a couple of end-of-season awards. Some injury news for the Cats, plus the CFP rankings come out tonight. We'll talk about all of it next on 580 Sports Talk. We've got a couple of texts and comments to get to here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan with you on this Tuesday afternoon. One comment on the Sports on 580 YouTube on our live stream. Say hello to everybody.
Hi, guys.
Mark says, does that mean, Brendan, you don't like Bugs Bunny since he likes carrots? No, I mean, I'm cool with Bugs. Like, we could have different opinions on things. But if he ever offers me a snack, I'm going to say no, absolutely not. Keep that trash away from me.
That may have been one of the reasons my parents were able to get me to eat carrots when I was
Bugs
a kid.
Bunny ate
Bugs Bunny likes carrots. They're good for your eyesight. Yeah, that was a lie.
I'll take a vitamin. Like, I'll eat a pill.
My hundreds and hundreds of dollars I've spent on contact lenses over the year tells me that the whole carrots are good for your eyes. BS. What a pant load that is.
We also have a text from the 402 that asks, where does onion rate for vegetables? I'm not going to eat onion on its own.
No, I'm
not. I don't like onion rings either.
Really?
Yeah, not an onion ring guy.
Wow, man, a good plate of onion rings?
But like on a burger, okay. Like I won't pull it off. If it starts falling out, though, I'm not going to put it back in. Like, yeah, okay.
You know who's got really good onion rings? The Pad.
Do they really?
Oh, yeah.
The Pad is good everything. Shout out to the Pad.
They've got
to get lunch up there someday soon.
Facts. My wife went there the other night when I wasn't around, and I was betrayed. I felt very betrayed.
Man, I can get cheese balls right now. That sounds so good. Oh, that sounds so good.
No, I'm a big proponent of onion on like deli sandwich, onion on burger, like big proponent of onion as a flavor enhancer.
Wanted to get to some college football news here. On the K-State front, a couple big pieces of injury news. First one, Kobe Savage is out for the year due to the injury he suffered this weekend. That sucks, man. That really blows. Good player, great addition to the secondary. One of those veterans we talked about going into the year that needed to step up big time. He did. That really sucks. I feel bad for Kobe Savage. The other news, Adrian Martinez, according to Chris Kleiman, is not out for the year, but he is out this week. K-State has somewhere between 3 and 4 games left this year. 2 regular season games, a bowl game, possibly the Big 12 championship game. I mean, what is the actual likelihood we see Adrian Martinez take meaningful snaps again? Low, like 10%, 20%?
Maybe the bowl, and it would depend on the bowl, like when the bowl is, how many practices they've got. I mean, yeah, what we were hearing yesterday, what we talked about, it was a 4 to 6 week injury, and that would make it very difficult to even envision him being back for a bowl game, depending again on which bowl it is. So I think that Chris Kleiman made it clear it's Will Howard's team. Those are the words from his mouth earlier today in his midweek press conference, that going forward, the red shirt is no longer a consideration. I don't think this will be game 4. So theoretically, Will Howard could go and ball out against West Virginia, and then they could decide to set him aside. And I don't know what you would do if Adrian Martinez wasn't healthy. You play Jake Rubley against KU? No. Like, obviously you don't do that. Like, no. It's Adrian Martinez or it's Will Howard. And right now it's Will Howard. And I think that knowing that the red shirt is not a consideration any longer, I think that might even be helpful to Will Howard, because he's not got in the back of his mind, this is just temporary. Yeah. I'm just out here winging it. No, like, this is his team, and he's playing with the confidence that it should be his team, and the guys around him are playing with the confidence in him that it should be his team.
I made the comment last year that I was happy Jalen Daniels chose not to redshirt for KU, because it would have been an awful sign to the team. Like, hey, you came back, you beat Texas, all that. And they've talked about this. Leipold's talked about it. Daniels has talked about it. Like, it would send a horrible message, and they wanted to win. They were there to win, not to worry about future eligibility or all that. We wanted to go out there and play the best we could. And they had 2 really close games to end the year after Texas last year. Same thing here, I think. I get the argument for keeping it, because the K-State, we've talked about this before. I have thought about it a lot. The K-State quarterback room next year is going to look real weird. Like, there's going to be a lot of decisions that a lot of guys are going to have to make between Howard, Rubley, Lara, Avery Johnson,
Jaron Lewis.
A lot of guys are going to have to make some big decisions for their future. Not all 5 of those guys are going to be around next year. No. There's just no way that happens. So you can understand, hey, I'd like to keep the extra year of eligibility because maybe I go somewhere else. Like Avery Johnson's next. Like, he is the next big thing for this program. It might not be Will Howard. Maybe I need to go somewhere else to really get a chance to be a full-time starter long-term. I'd like to keep that extra year. But I have nothing but respect for saying, look, this is my team now. I want to play like it is my team. My coaches trust me. My teammates absolutely trust me. The fans are behind me. I want to ride out. I want to play out the string as best as I can. And it might be 4 more games. I mean, that would be a whole half a season, or maybe even a little bit more if the math works out, where he has been the focal point quarterback. So I get it and I respect it. And I wish him the best, because I'm not going to say I was wrong about him, because the last 2 years I think I was right, but this year I would have been wrong.
Right.
Because he has been unbelievable.
No, the criticism was richly deserved, and it didn't come from nowhere. But I think that Will Howard is a story that stands to prove the adage about development not being linear. That nobody develops on the same track as the next person or the person before them. Everyone develops on their own time. Everyone grows on their own timeline and has milestones that they reach in their development that get them to their next level as a player. It was very telling how K-State stood by Will Howard. They didn't pull the plug on him last season when they could have, when it didn't look good. They could have said, well, man, let's just see what Jake Rubley's got. Rubley was the highest rated quarterback K-State's ever signed. And let's see, what he's got. Or Jaron Lewis was looking great in practice. Let's give him a go. They stood by Will Howard. They believed in Will Howard's potential. And we may not have seen it, but there's a reason we're here behind these microphones, or we're sitting in the press box, or we're sitting in the stands at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. And Chris Kleiman and Colin Klein are the ones with the headsets on. And they're the ones making that decision.
Absolutely. By the way, one other note on K-State and KU, and we'll talk more KU coming up next hour in 23rd Street Brewery, Jayhawk Weekly with Michael Swain. But the semifinalists for the Broyles Award were announced today, the best assistant coach in the country. Both Joe Klanderman, K-State defensive coordinator, and KU offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki are semifinalists for the Broyles Award. How about that? That's pretty cool. I think deserved for both of them.
Yeah, very, very cool deal. And I think extremely well-deserved. Like, this Kansas State defense is so good.
Yeah, it's sick.
They've had 2 tough halves against 2 really good offenses, TCU and Texas. Other than that, they have been dynamite this year. Just really, really good. And Andy Kotelnicki has come up with some really awesome stuff. And it has taken, like, we knew Devin Neal was good. He's been great. We knew Jalen Daniels had a chance to be good. He's been great.
Yep.
But it's been the players at the other positions and the growth and the production that they've gotten at wide receiver and tight end.
Oh, yeah.
That is a sign, certainly, that the position coaches are doing great work, but that the offensive coordinator is putting those guys in a position to succeed and seeing their confidence grow and grow and grow. It's a richly deserved nomination for Kotelnicki.
I don't think any of these guys will get, first team Big 12 honors, but going into the year, if you asked 100 people who follow the program, how many people do you think would say, oh yeah, some combination of Luke Grimm, Quentin Skinner, name any of those wide receivers, and Mason Fairchild would get a vote or 2 for all Big 12 teams? No one. Exactly no one. Maybe us on Luke Grimm, because we were on him early. Otherwise, though, no one would have said that. But all those guys have been contributors this year. They've all been great, and that's so cool. So shout out to both Joe Klanderman and for Andy Kotelnicki. That's awesome for both of them. Last thing before we get to the top of the hour here. College football playoff rankings come out tonight. Will we see a change in the top 4? It was last week, Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, TCU 4. Your first 2 out were Tennessee and Oregon. Any change in the top 4? Any change in the top 6?
I don't think we're going to see a change in the top 4. It would be really hard to move anybody above those 4. I mean, you dock TCU for going to Austin and winning. That would be asinine to me.
Especially after all the complaining about, their defense. Well, they won with defense.
Yes, that 100% they did. They also, I also don't believe they're going to move Tennessee. Tennessee's not going to budge. They ham-blasted Mizzou.
Love it.
So number 6 is where it gets interesting. Is it going to be USC with 1 loss? Is it going to be LSU with 2 losses? Because I think that's who it's going to be down to.
Yeah.
2-loss LSU or 1-loss USC. For the Pac-12's sake, it better be 1-loss USC.
Yeah, because otherwise that's going to be further proof that they, like the Big 12, just the committee does not care. Like, if you're not undefeated, it really does not matter. Would you give any credence to, and I'm not saying I want this, I'm just saying as a talking point, is there any chance Clemson gets close to that number? They're 9-1. They've just handled the Louisville team that's not great, but has played actually, I think, better than expected this year.
Clemson was 10th last week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a sign the committee doesn't think of them as a playoff team.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
I don't. I mean, could they?
They shouldn't.
Could they jump to 8? Possibly. I mean, they'll be higher ranked than Oregon this week.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be higher ranked than USC this week, but they're not getting any higher than 8th, I don't think.
No, I'm with you. I would go personally. Well, I still would put Michigan above Ohio State. Not that it matters. Neutral site, they play each other. But I'd go Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, TCU. So same 4 at the top. Tennessee 5. I would put USC 6th, but I can understand the opposite argument. Like, we would like a team that actually tries on both sides of the ball. I can understand that. But by the same token, LSU has a couple of the biggest wins of anybody the whole year. They barely beat Arkansas, though.
They did. That was a big letdown spot, and they had to hang on to beat Arkansas with a backup quarterback.
By the way, yeah, Arkansas with a backup quarterback. How bad must Arkansas feel to have lost to Liberty, and then 1 week later, Liberty got handled by UConn? Handled by the Huskies.
Hasn't been the year I think they were hoping to have for Sam Pittman and the Hogs.
No,
this year. They don't get the attention because Alabama's got 2 losses and Texas A&M is a dumpster fire.
Mm-hmm.
But Arkansas has been one of the most disappointing teams in the SEC and by extension, the entire country this year.
Oh, yeah. I think pretty easily so far this year. That'll do it for the 3 o'clock hour. We've got some more NFL to get to lead off the 4 o'clock hour, plus What Is Wrong With You and our 23rd Street Brewery Jayhawk Weekly, all next hour on 580 Sports Talk. now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero with you from now until 6 o'clock here on 580 Sports Talk. Appreciate you spending some of your afternoon with us. Head to our website, 580wibw.com. If you missed any of the show from the first hour of programming today, our chat about college football news, the Chiefs newcomers, Random Question Tuesday, a lot of food talk on Random Question Tuesday today. That's all on our website, 580wibw.com. Go to the podcast tab. It's right in the middle of the homepage. And then click on 580 Sports Talk for the hour-by-hour breakdown of the show. Coming up here in the 4 o'clock hour, we'll get to some NFL chat here in just a moment. We've got today's What Is Wrong With You. Our current winner, Declan Quinn, the fake name used by a gentleman to commit fraud. It just had to be as Irish as possible.
We think he had to retrofit a story to match the stolen passport or the fraudulent passport he was using. But yeah, some middle-aged felon from Wisconsin was pretending to be an Irish immigrant named Declan Quinn so he could become the president of his HOA.
And then steal $17,000.
And pawn some stuff off, too. He broke the Florida Pawnbroker Act.
That is our current weekly winner. That's a darn good story. We've got two new ones, though, coming up in just over 15 minutes. And then coming up at the bottom of the hour, Michael Swain of Fog.net will join us for our 23rd Street Brewery Jayhawk Weekly. All that is coming your way here on this hour of 580 Sports Talk. And, of course, your texts are always welcome on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. And you are welcome to chime in on the comments on YouTube on the video live stream as well. Sports on 580 WIBW is the account. So go over, subscribe, follow us, and you can see all of the live shows. We have one message here. I want to get to this from last night's game, Monday Night Football. The Eagles lost for the first time all year. It actually turns out that it's bad to literally not be able to stop the run at any point.
And turn the ball over a bunch.
Yeah, they had 3 turnovers all season and then had, 4 last night?
4 last night, including the one on the final play that ended up being a touchdown that, well, it didn't swing anything where they have the big buildings out in the desert, but it was still a funny way to end the game.
Very funny. We've got a comment on the Sports on 580 YouTube comment section that says, what the hell was Brandon Graham thinking about last night? I'm not disappointed at all the Eagles lost, but he's a veteran. He knows better. So I will tee this up because I know your reaction to this play. If you didn't see Monday Night Football last night, effectively the final play of the game, the last meaningful play of the game, Taylor Heineke was scrambling around, burning off clock in the backfield. They probably should have just run the ball. I'm actually amazed Ron Rivera, of all people, didn't run the ball there. Heineke is scrambling around, kneels down. He gives himself up in the backfield, and then Brandon Graham of the Eagles slides in and hits him. That drew a roughing the passer flag or a late hit. Maybe I don't know exactly what the penalty was. It was a personal foul, though, on Brandon Graham. That gave a first down to Washington. They were able to kneel out the clock from there as opposed to giving Philly the ball back with, 20 seconds, whatever would have been left. But it ended all hope. Heineke gets up, and he is pumped that he just drew that penalty.
Biggest lame in the world.
I can understand why it's a tough look to
huge dork.
Take a knee, give yourself up, and then celebrate like crazy when a dude hits you late.
You beg for the QB pity flag. He immediately started looking around for the QB pity flag, and when he got it, he got up and he celebrated like he just went John Elway helicopter across the goal line to win the Super Bowl. It was the dorkiest thing I've ever seen on an NFL field. And it made me completely dislike Taylor Heineke. Just completely dislike him. What a dork. What a tryhard. I hated that flag. I hated the fact that flag came out. When I watched that play live, I didn't know Taylor Heineke took a knee. I thought he fell down. I thought he was sliding to a stop and he fell down. He may have given himself up, but let me ask you a question. If you're Brandon Graham and you coming from the backside and you see a player fall down, is your first thought, I better lay up? Or is your first thought, well, I got to finish the play because we need this ball back. I got to finish the play. I got to play to the whistle. And, by the way, Brandon Graham has had 2 major ACL injuries in his career. Mm-hmm. Maybe the breaks don't work in a way that they do for some people.
Yeah.
Certainly the breaks don't always work well for, 250-pound weapons of mass destruction at defensive end anyway, with or without the history of knee injuries. I didn't think the contact was excessive. I didn't think the contact was malicious. It looks like he's trying to pull up. He didn't lower the head.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't flop down on top of him. He kind of slid into him to make sure the play was dead. But unfortunately, the play was already dead, and he got the flag. And look, every quarterback in the league is going to get that flag. Taylor Heineke, to Patrick Mahomes, to Tom Brady, to whomever. They're always going to throw that flag. Doesn't mean I have to like it. I thought it was a garbage flag. I thought it was ridiculous. And it was a really lame way for that football game to end.
Yeah, I get why they threw it. I do. And I get why Heineke was pumped up about it. I mean, that's, in reality, Washington is the less talented team. And
yeah, they stole that one. I mean, if they don't get away with a face mask leading to Dallas Goedert fumbling the football,
that was bad,
if Quez Watkins doesn't decide to get up and try and run, leading to him fumbling the football, there were a lot of breaks. Like, a lot had to go wrong for Philadelphia. Even, you mentioned they didn't stop the run worth a darn last night. That was obvious. They struggled. They missed Jordan Davis's presence a lot. They need him back. All that being said, so much had to go against the Eagles, and it all did. Every bit of it did for them to lose that game.
That's why they shouldn't be too worried, honestly. Like, they need Jordan Davis back, yeah, but
no, they
should have won.
They weren't going undefeated anyway. I don't think there's any, alarms that go off after that one. That's one of those you got to charge to the game.
That's a big one, though, for the Commanders, because they're still in the thick of it for a wild card at this point. That's a really big deal for them. All right, let's get to the Super Bowl contenders, of which Washington is not one. However, the Eagles certainly are. So we've got a list here of the 4 biggest contenders right now to win the Super Bowl, plus 2 wild card teams. Dan and I are each going to come up with one. This team, whether it be the Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, the Vikings, or our 2 hidden teams, will win the Super Bowl if what happens. That is the concept of this segment. So let's start with the easy one here. Let's start with the hometown team. Let's go with the Chiefs. If the Chiefs are to win the Super Bowl this year, what specific thing has to go right?
The Chiefs will win the Super Bowl if the offense continues to evolve. I think the defense, as presently constructed for the Chiefs, is good enough paired with the heights that this offense can hit to win a Super Bowl. I think this defense is the equal, and maybe I don't know if it's as good at rushing the passer, but I think it's about equal all the way around to the defense that did win Super Bowl, 54?
54.
Yeah, Super Bowl 54. So the question is, can the offense continue to reach these heights? Can they continue to be a threat to score 30 on a game-in, game-out basis? And I believe if they continue to evolve offensively, that they will be. There have been times, and it really hasn't happened a ton under Mahomes. If anything, the reverse happened last year, that the Chiefs will look like the Harlem Globetrotters early in the season. And then as the year goes on, defenses kind of catch up to what they're doing a little bit, start having a little more success against them on third downs, maybe force some extra turnover or 2 in a game, and slow the Chiefs offense just a little bit. Last year, it was the opposite. It was the Chiefs that adjusted to the league when it looked like the league maybe had something figured out. Like, now we know how to stop Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
And Mahomes and this offense is really struggling. For a whole month, they went out there and they were in a funk. And then they made that adjustment and they looked as good as they've ever looked. This year, with this offensive skill position group, it is still evolving. Isaiah Pacheco has only just now, it would appear, and look, if we're wrong on this, we'll see, but it's only just now staked his claim to being the number 1 running back and the most reliable guy on the ground. Kadarius Toney has just gotten here and has just started to make his impact. All of the other wide receivers that are first-year guys are now starting to settle in. So now things can evolve, things can change, things can be different, and the Chiefs can grow into being a team that has an answer for whatever it is that you throw at them. There have been teams that have made it hard for the Chiefs this year. The Titans certainly did. The Chargers back in week 2 did. They had J.C. Jackson on the field for that one. He, of course, won't play this coming week. And Bosa's still out too, right? He's not going to play this week either.
I don't believe so.
So that's another big piece that they're going to miss. But there have been teams that have made it hard, but the Chiefs have seen it now, and they still made it happen. I mean, it's not as though the Chiefs couldn't move the ball against the Titans, couldn't move the ball against the Chargers. So it's that continued evolution and making sure you have a counter for whatever a defense can throw at you. If the Chiefs do that, they will win the Super Bowl.
I think the same point is where I would go, but I would flip sides of the ball. I think the defense needs to keep growing is the word I will use for it. I have full confidence in this offense at this point and where this offense is heading between what they've started to do with the run game, which I really like, getting Tony more involved as your all-purpose athletic weapon on offense. Once Juju gets back, whenever that ends up being, he has been a true number one this year. MVS is doing his thing. Travis Kelce is doing his thing, which is play like an all-pro yet again. And Mahomes looks as good as he has in a couple of years now. I'm totally fine with where the offense is. Defensively, I like what they've done the last couple of weeks. I think in the last 3 games, going back to San Francisco, they have shown improvement. They have shown more consistency. They have shown more togetherness, more cohesiveness. I just want to see it continue to grow. There will be at times this year, times when it could be one guy at a time. It could be the whole group of them. Those rookies on the back end struggle because that just happens in the NFL. Most rookies, almost every rookie has some period of growing pains their first year in the league. If you can avoid having a huge swing of that, the Chiefs will be just fine. But that group, I think, just needs to continue to get better because there will be more tape on them at some point. Their tendencies will be more on film. So when they play teams later on in the season, and I'm going to pull the schedule up right now as for an example of who some of these teams could end up being. Okay, when they play the Seahawks have been a very well-coached offensive team so far this year. That's going to be a tough game late in the year. They've got to play the Bengals. That's going to be if Jamar Chase is back especially, and I do think he will be by December 4th, that's going to be a big-time test for those young corners. So I want to see them continue to grow. I'm very excited to see Frank Clark back with the group this week because I think the pass rush has looked much better in the last couple of games. Add Frank Clark back, hopefully healthy, hopefully got the body and mind right. I think there's a lot more this defense could still achieve. I think they could be a top 12 to 15 defense by the time it's all said and done this year, or could be playing like one anyway. So I just want to see them keep taking those small baby steps forward. I think they can do that. And I think if they do, they're going to be just fine going forward. That's what I think it'll take because I think the offense right now is already Super Bowl ready. Next biggest team, next biggest contender, at least out of the AFC, the Bills. The Bills will win the Super Bowl. And I'll go first on this one. If Josh Allen rediscovers weeks 1 through 6, Josh Allen, because the last few weeks, the turnovers have been a problem, and he has been really banged up. He's got the UCL issue, which, I mean, last week it seemed initially like not a big deal. Then it sounded like, oh, yeah, by the way, he might have damaged the ligament. Certainly not a good thing. He's turned the ball over a bunch. They need him to get back to take care of the ball while making the splash plays, Josh Allen. I mean, the accuracy in general has not been there. The catch that was controversial on the Bills field goal drive at the end of the game on Sunday, that was definitely dropped, but review didn't get there to review it in time. Not an especially well-thrown ball. I mean, that was away. The receiver had to go make a play on that. The interception at the end of the game in overtime, not a good throw. I mean, that's a bad decision. It's an inaccurate throw. It just bad. They've got to get him to rediscover what made him the MVP favorite through 6 weeks. And I agree with Matt Verderame when we spoke to him yesterday that this team in Buffalo isn't super well balanced. I mean, they need Allen to be Superman, but I don't think there's anything they can do realistically with their running game or, and injuries happen to the defense. You can't avoid that. It just happens sometimes. They can only do so much in those areas. For them to be at their best like they've been so far this year, they need Allen to get back to MVP level, which he hasn't been in a few weeks. If they can do that, they're still good enough to beat anybody, though.
The Bills win the Super Bowl if they make one more play on defense. And what I mean by that is they have the Vikings beat if they get them off the field on that 4th and 18. Justin Jefferson makes that ridiculous catch. But come on, that's 4th and 18. You got to get off the field. I don't care if Justin Jefferson's a mix between Jerry Rice and Superman. Get off the field. Make that play. They have been hurt by injuries. I mean, we could all say, any team, well, they win the Super Bowl if they stay healthy. Yeah, this is a team that's going to get healthier. Mm-hmm. That's going to help them a lot. But they seem like, they need to be able to make one more play in the secondary. They're leaning on a lot of rookies back there right now. one more play, when Jordan Poyer's back from injury, one more play from some of those corners as they gain experience as their rookie seasons go along, one more play from the linebacker, one more play from a pass rusher. The plays have been there to be made, and they haven't made them in the last couple of weeks. And I think those things have been costly. I still consider the Bills, when everything's right for them, I still think they're the most complete roster in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for them, it's the finer margins. It's just being able to make one more play, or in Allen's case, one less mistake per game.
Let's go to the NFC. The two teams at the top of the NFC. We'll whip through these. Eagles. What's it going to take for them to hang out and win the Super Bowl? Because I agree with what we said earlier. Last night's not a huge worry.
No. The Eagles win a Super Bowl if they prove they can win in chaos. They've been in control of pretty much all of the games that they've won to this point. Even the close games, a lot of those games were made close because of some late rallies, like the Lions in week 1 rallied late, the Cowboys on that Sunday Night Football game, they rallied late. But Philadelphia has been able to control football games and play them on their terms. They were not able to control last night's football game, and they lost. So very simple. Can they win in chaos? Can they win a shootout? If they need Jalen Hurts to throw for 350 yards to keep up in a shootout, can they win that game? If they go behind 10-0, can they win that game? If they turn the ball over 3 times, can they win that game? If they can, they've got, I think, the most complete roster in the NFC. So I think it's very realistic to talk about them as a team that can win the Super Bowl, but they have to be able to win in chaos.
I think the Eagles can win if, when called upon, Jalen Hurts can take over a game. And they've got a lot of playmakers. That running game, including Jalen Hurts, really good. They've got playmakers on the outside. Love Devonta Smith. Love A.J. Brown. Dallas Goedert's a really good tight end. They're well coached, well schemed. But if you go back to, every postseason pretty much in recent memory, teams that have gotten to and won a Super Bowl at some point need their quarterback to step up and be a superhero. We saw it with Mahomes. We've seen it with Brady how many times? Stafford probably right on the fringes of that, but he made enough plays to get him there last year. Joe Burrow sure played like that, at least partially during the Bengals run the second half of last year into the postseason. Your quarterback has to be able to take over in those chaotic, pressure-filled situations. So can Jalen Hurts do that, not just with his legs, but with his arm as well? If so, they're going to be in the Super Bowl this year. I really do, because I think they're far and away the best team in the NFC. The other top team in the NFC, the Minnesota Vikings, the team that still nobody's quite convinced is really that good. What will it take for them to be a Super Bowl winner?
The Vikings can win the Super Bowl if the game is scheduled for a noon Central Time kickoff. I'm sorry. I do not take a team with Kirk Cousins as their quarterback seriously as a Super Bowl threat. I don't. They could go 16-1. I still wouldn't take them seriously as a team that could win a Super Bowl. You go against Mahomes, go against Allen, and win a big game. I don't think they can do it. I don't. They won't convince me unless they actually do it. And then I'll say, all right, I'll tip my cap. A hand up. I was wrong. But I do not believe in Kirk Cousins. I will not believe in Kirk Cousins. I've seen enough of Kirk Cousins to know that not believing in Kirk Cousins is the safer bet.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to argue with that, to be completely honest with you. I mean,
because it's not like Cousins lit the world on fire against the Bills. He threw 2 terrible interceptions in that game.
Mm-hmm. So I will give you this then. The Vikings can win the Super Bowl if Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook, among others, play like all pros every single week between now and the end of the Super Bowl. Like in a primetime game against Philly. You remember the last time the Vikings played against Philly in a big playoff game? Yeah, it didn't go so well for Minnesota, even though that was before Kirk Cousins. If Justin Jefferson plays like the best wide receiver in football, which is where he is trending through this year so far, and if Dalvin Cook plays like the best running back in football, which I do believe he has the potential to play like, I think he's that good, then they're going to have a real chance. But you can't rely on Kirk Cousins. You absolutely cannot.
No, they got a lot of high-end talent, and when high-end talent plays like the best players on the field, that gives them a chance on a week-in, week-out basis.
All right, who's your wild card team you're going to throw into the mix here?
I'm going to throw out the San Francisco 49ers.
Interesting. Okay.
The San Francisco 49ers can win the Super Bowl. I think that they are either the third or fourth best team in the NFC, depending on how I feel about Dallas on a given day. I still have to put them ahead of Seattle. The 49ers can win the Super Bowl if the running game never wavers. Remember that? I'm rhetorically asking here, because I know you remember it, and I know you wish you didn't.
Yeah.
But that NFC Championship game where Jimmy Garoppolo threw 7 passes or whatever it was, and the 49ers beat the Packers anyway.
I do remember.
Yeah, that's what it looks like for the 49ers. Their running game can be awesome. They don't have a great offensive line, but they have a great scheme. And in Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey, they have 2 great running backs. And in Deebo Samuel, they have a weapon that can function in that running game as well. If they can control games with the run and the pass rush, they could theoretically ride the Jimmy Garoppolo wagon back to a Super Bowl. I think it could happen.
My team is Miami, and I'm going to say Miami can win the Super Bowl. And there's a few different ways you could go with this, honestly, because their defense is going to be a concern because they are so injured. If Tua continues to play like an MVP, they can win the Super Bowl. I really do think so. They've got the weapons. They've got the run game now, too. I don't know if you saw Jeff Wilson on Sunday. First game of the Dolphins, over 100 yards. Or second game of the Dolphins, over 100 yards.
They feel like the 2021 Bengals right now, to me. They feel like that team that is so explosive on offense that they just need to be good enough defensively. They catch you on a bad day, they're going to beat you.
And I think they've got the pieces. I think they've got a coach with the right mindset to get them there. They got a better coach than Zach Taylor. I know that for sure. I know that for certain. They can run the ball better than that Bengals team could last year. So I would say as long as Tua continues to play like this and does not falter, I think they've got a legit chance. They might win that division. If the Bills have to deal with a bunch of injuries, they really might. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, we've got today's What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk.
What the hell? What the hell?
It's time for a quick What Is Wrong With You before we get to Jayhawk Weekly this week. Declan Quinn is our current winner, the middle-aged man from Wisconsin who retrofitted an identity to a stolen passport of his, created a new Irish identity going by the name of Declan Quinn, and then became HOA president and essentially stole $17,000. Dan, what is your story for today?
Well, somebody left a big fat check on a train.
Well, that's not smart.
38-year-old Anwar from Frankfurt, Germany, who was standing on a train platform after returning from a visit to his mother when he came across a check. The check was written to gummy giant Haribo. You know the gold bags.
Of course.
Yeah, Haribo. This was a check to Haribo from a grocery company. And it was worth 4 million pounds.
Wow. That's a lot.
A 4 million pound check to Haribo. Now, Anwar did the nice thing, the gentlemanly thing, the thing I think anyone would do, is they hollered at Haribo and said, hey, I got a check for $4 million or 4 million pounds, 4.05 million pounds, 4.6 million euros, and returned the check to Haribo. Haribo responded and showed their gratitude by sending him 6 packages of gummy bears.
Oh, come on. Boo.
The check had reportedly been issued by the supermarket group Rewe, R-E-W-E, to the sweet makers, but was somehow lost at the station. Anwar contacted Haribo about his discovery. One of their lawyers got in touch with him. Instead of asking for it back, they told him to destroy the check and send him a photograph as proof. He dutifully complied, and a few days later got a box from Haribo in the mail containing 6 bags of their sweets, which usually retail in the UK for £1 each. Anwar was reportedly not impressed, as he believes he saved the company millions, saying, quote, I thought that was a bit cheap. Haribo replied, since it was a named check, nobody but our company could have redeemed it. It was our standard package that we sent as a thank you.
I would have taken the check home and shredded it. There's going to be $6 of snacks.
That's what they asked him to do, was shred it.
By the way, there's a picture here of the box. Dan, you might want to pay close attention here. The top package in the box is something called the Haribo Super Gherkin. That is a sour pickle snack.
Oh, no. Man, listen, if I did a favor, like I am a Haribo loyalist. I'm a big gummy guy.
Yep.
That's like my favorite candy. I'm a big fan of like the gold bags, Haribo gummy bears. That's like when I get a sweet tooth, I want gummy candy, and particularly Haribo gummy bears. If Haribo sent me a pickle flavored candy, I'd burn that place to the ground.
My story is going to take us to Toronto, where a gentleman robbed not one, not 2, but 3 banks within a span of a couple of hours this past week. Toronto police warned the public just after 10 a.m. yesterday that a robbery had taken place near Yonge Street and Gerrard Street East at 9:47 a.m. They tweeted out that there was a financial holdup, gun indicated, not seen, no reported injuries, man fled on foot, investigation ongoing. Then police shared another story of a very similar sounding financial holdup at Yonge Street and Bloor, which is just a 5-minute drive or 16-minute walk away from the first robbery, where this person said they had a gun, it was not seen, there were no injuries, and he fled on foot. Not often that the same person robs a bank twice in the same day and gets away from police. But this man was just committed to the grind. He could not stop. And at 1:30 p.m. yesterday, he showed up at another bank trying to rob it. This time, the police were ready.
Third time was a charm for the Toronto PD.
The TPS wrote, police are on scene. Suspect has been arrested. Believed to be the same suspect from 2 earlier robberies. Anyone with info, contact police.
Yeah, he got greedy.
Yep. You gotta quit. That's that's when you cash out.
Yeah,
you don't let that parlay roll. You got to cash that one out.
Yeah, that's what he was. He had a 3-leg parlay of bank robbery.
He had a 3-legger. That was plus 800. He got the first 2. He could have cashed out for a couple $100. No. I'm going to ride it. I'm gonna let it ride. Who do you got for today?
I'm definitely going with the guy who got a little too much dip on his chip. Tried to rob 3 banks.
Yeah, I'm with you too. But does that beat Declan Quinn?
Again, imagine what a mid-50s man from Wisconsin's Irish accent sounds like. And that was enough to fool people into electing him the president of the HOA.
That's good enough for me. Declan Quinn wins again. That is our weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You and advances on to tomorrow's show. Right now, we are going to take a timeout. When we come back, Michael Swain will join us for Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk.
In Lawrence, Kansas tonight.
Michael Swain covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net and 24/7 Sports. You can find him on Twitter at mswain247 and head over to Fog.net for all the best coverage of all things Kansas Jayhawks. Michael joins us every Tuesday on the show for our 23rd Street Brewery Jayhawk Weekly, brought to you by our good friends at 23rd Street Brewery on Clinton Parkway in Lawrence. What's going on, Michael? How are you, man?
Doing well. Getting ready for some late basketball tonight. Probably my least favorite tip-off time of the year. A random time that comes after 8:30 Central. So should be a lot of fun tonight.
Did you make the trip to Indianapolis?
No, I did not. A little too much going on with football and everything this week to make it up.
Understandable, honestly. And to be fair, and Dan went to school in Indiana. He knows this. There's not many places in Indiana that are worth seeing, but Indy's an all right city.
Indianapolis is fine.
Yeah,
I think
fine.
Indianapolis, it's clean and easy to get around, and the arena's cool.
Is that where the Final Four is this year? No, that's in Houston this year.
Houston. Yeah, it's in Houston, but also sources tell me Indianapolis right now, traffic nightmare with some construction. So good for everyone to know if you're up there right now.
They have one of those interstates that goes all the way around the city.
They do.
Those ring roads. Yeah.
I've been on that before. Yeah. Indy's a fine city, but staying at home and enjoying our cold weather and traffic is just fine as well. Michael, we'll get to the Champions Classic here in just a moment. I do want to touch on the loss for KU to Texas Tech this weekend. And I'm curious if you feel like this is a fair take or not, because we were talking about the game on the show yesterday, and I said it feels like we have seen the same KU game 4 different times in losses in Big 12 play, where KU goes down big early, keeps it somewhat respectable at halftime, lingers around for most of the second half, and then comes up just short with a chance to tie or take the lead at the end of the game. That felt like it was mostly the case this week. Feels like it's been the case, too, against TCU, against Baylor, and Oklahoma. Do you feel the same way?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think you take bits and pieces from each of those games, and I think you put it all together, and that's really what happened to Kansas on Saturday. You take bits of the Oklahoma game, really struggling with the up-tempo style of Oklahoma, and I think KU really struggled with Texas Tech's no huddle. I think at times KU did a really good job of slowing the pace down, but I thought Joey McGuire and the Texas Tech staff did a good job of countering them and not subbing as much and not letting KU dictate the pace. Then you saw against Baylor, right? I think at times they were able to run the ball against KU's front, and I think at times Texas Tech was able to do the same. I think the first play from scrimmage told you everything you need to know, where right from the get-go, Texas Tech's offensive line pushed KU's defensive line back 4 yards. And as the first run went for 6 yards, and that was a sign of basically what was to come. And then you look at, I think, a little bit of just overall with Jason being a quarterback, there are moments that leave you scratching your head. And I think Jason Bean is a good quarterback, and obviously you can win games with Jason Bean. I've been saying that. It came true against Oklahoma State. But Jason Bean's going to make some mistakes that are going to put you in a position where you need other talented players to overcome it. And I think at this point in time, KU's talented players either aren't at 100% or aren't out there. In the case of someone like Daniel Highshaw maybe, or even Jalen Daniels, Lonnie Phelps as well, playing banged up like a lot of players are right now. So I think it's one of those losses where I think you nailed it. There was a recipe to beat Kansas, and Texas Tech followed it to a T. And it's the same thing that Oklahoma used, and to some degree it's the same thing that Baylor used. I think the TCU game, a little bit different just because KU's defense really did keep the Jayhawks in that game, and I think the offense came alive in the second half as the defense kind of faded. But it's just a common theme. This team right now needs to play complementary football to win games, and if they don't do that, it's going to be really, really hard to, just considering, again, kind of the overall talent level, I think, where KU is actually as the program right now.
Jason Bean gets hurt at the end of the game against Texas Tech. We heard yesterday from Lance Leipold, barely did anything in practice. Ethan Vasco plays the end of that game. I know you've talked about this for quite some time, and we've heard it too from folks at the facility that the program is really, really high on what Ethan Vasco can be for this team. And then Jalen Daniels, we heard it from Lance Leipold, Michael. It sounds like he is getting closer and closer. So with all of that in mind and with all those options, who do you think starts at quarterback this week against Texas?
Oh, I'd be shocked if it's not Jalen Daniels. I think Lance Leipold yesterday told you everything you need to know. He's not going to come out and say Jalen Daniels is going to start. That's not how they're going to play their cards. But that's the first time that Lance Leipold has actually been willing to say anything about Jalen other than he's practicing and taking reps. He went on for like 90 seconds or 60 seconds talking about it, and he's not done that. I think that tells you everything you need to know about where he's at in his progression. I think it will be Jalen that starts, and I think you look at the decision to put Ethan Vasco in the game on Saturday. I thought it was very interesting, and it obviously sparked Lance Leipold's quote to say that, hey, Jalen is close, but they did not want to make Jalen Daniels return and come back his first action to be, hey, you just sat on the sideline in 30-degree weather for the last 3.5 hours. Now go out and throw a football. Like, they didn't want to do that to him for his return. But I think after a full week of practice and taking more reps, and then all of a sudden you get a full time to warm up and you're loose, it's kind of like a starting pitcher, right? It's a lot easier to come into the game at the start of it when you've been warming up for the last 30 minutes than it is as a closer when you've been sitting on the bench for 3 hours. So I do think it will be Jalen Daniels. I don't know what level we'll see from Jalen Daniels. I think people have to remember that he was not lighting the world up before he got hurt. He was not great against Iowa State. He was not great in the first half against TCU. So the most recent 6 quarters that Jalen Daniels played, it wasn't necessarily the light him up quarterback that you saw the first 3 weeks of the season. So for me, I'm just curious to see what level of play Jalen has if indeed he does start like I do expect him to. So I think that for me is a good wrinkle for Saturday. How does Jalen Daniels look? Because I think this would be a tough matchup for Kansas. Maybe we'll talk about it, but this would be a tough matchup. I almost looked ahead as like, hey, can Jalen at least like get a feel for it so that maybe that K-State game in prime time in Manhattan, maybe that's one where he looks a lot closer to he did early in the season.
Our guest is Michael Swain of Fog.net and 24/7 Sports. He joins us every Tuesday at this time on the program for Jayhawk Weekly, presented by 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. Great place to watch the Jayhawks or any major sporting event, and of course have some delicious food and some great brews. 23rd Street Brewery, presenting sponsor of Jayhawk Weekly. Michael, I look at this Texas matchup and I see a mismatch in the trenches on both sides of the football. How, if at all, can Kansas mitigate that and be competitive against the Longhorns in that way?
Can they have their guys grow 2 inches and add 30 pounds? Because that's what Texas's line looks like. I don't know if anyone watched the TCU-Texas game, but if you watch what KU's offensive line and defensive line looked against TCU, where I think size-wise they looked pretty similar, just in terms of in the trenches and both sides of the ball. That's a huge step forward for Kansas, by the way, just to be on par with other Big 12 teams. But then you watch that game on Saturday, and you see how big those defensive linemen are for Texas, and you see how big those offensive linemen are for Texas, and the fact that some of them are true freshmen, some of them are underclassmen. Like, it's just, they're huge. And I think for Kansas, the one thing you can say is, what are freshmen? Inconsistent. And what are underclassmen? They're inconsistent. Are they going to be able to play at that level when it's the coldest that it's been all season? Texas, historically, does not play well north of Texas in November. Right? I think you can look at last year, they got smoked by Iowa State on the road when it was 30 degrees up in Ames. And this is another kind of game that's similar to that. So if you want to say, okay, maybe the weather will impact, sure, but they will be bigger, faster, and stronger than Kansas in the trenches, which is just tough because for Kansas, the recipe for success this season has been you stop the run, you limit big plays, and then you kind of control the clock offensively with either going on explosive plays and forcing the other team to take long drives, or they eat up a lot of clock like they did against Oklahoma State. And I think it's going to be really, really tough to do against a team like Texas that, again, is just going to be bigger at the point of attack, which is going to mean they're going to have to scheme some stuff up. And I think you got to trust these coaches to try and put their players in the best position to do that.
Just a couple more questions for Michael Swain, who covers the Kansas Jayhawks better than anybody over at Fog.net. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. If you're not a VIP member over at 24/7, it is absolutely worth it. Michael's got great insight, great reporting over on the KU VIP board at Fog.net. You can also follow him on Twitter at mswain247. Michael, let's look ahead to tonight's KU Action Champions Classic taking on Duke. It could start at 8:30. It could start closer to 9:30. It is kind of hard to know, although it is almost late for the night game every single year at this event. What is going to be the difference maker to you? I think the easiest thing to point to is the size differential. I mean, Duke's got two guys who are 7'1" and another who's 6'10" or 6'11". KU starts a center who is 6'7". And I know Uday is going to play, but that's a lot of height that Duke has that KU does not. Is that going to be the biggest difference maker in this game, or might it be something else?
Maybe. I think it might be how KU shoots because, you know, if you listen to Norm Roberts after the North Dakota State game, it's kind of a saying that Bill Self and his coaches have always had. Size or speed makes size do silly things. And I think Kansas has the advantage in that regard where, yes, Duke will be able to throw out two, basically 7-footers and then a 6'8" guy, and have him play at the 3. Like, that's a tough matchup for Kansas. Well, how can Kansas counter that? Well, you go 5 out with KJ and you do a lot of pick and roll stuff. You let Jalen Wilson get to the rim. You let Grady Dick try and attack off the bounce. Same thing with DeJuan Harris. Maybe that's where KU is able to find an edge in this game because KU's not going to find an edge trying to bang it in down low. And that's not who they've been through the first 2 games, right? This has been a team that's done a lot of more of the 5 out, not a lot of post ups. Man, I can't even tell you the last time I remember seeing a post up. It's been a minute because Ernest Uday doesn't do it and KJ Adams doesn't do it, but they set a lot of screens and they roll. I think that's where maybe Kansas could be able to attack Duke because I think just size overall is going to be challenging. And I think for a young big man like the ones that Duke has, are they going to be able to be disciplined in the paint when Jalen Wilson comes driving in, when Kevin McCullough comes driving in? And Same thing with Juwan Harris. Maybe KU can get them into foul trouble. I just think the chess game of this will be so interesting because Duke will have the size advantage, but I think the Bill Self staff and Norm Roberts have shown last week and just in seasons past that, hey, when they go up against bigger teams, they almost lean on the lack of size more than trying to match the other team and try and maybe force the mismatch in their favor. Will it work out? I don't know, but I think if you're going to look for an edge for Kansas, I think that's what they're going to have to lean on.
Who ends up guarding some of those 7-footers, the Derek Lively's of the world for KU? I said it on one of our shows earlier today. I would not be surprised if there's at least an effort to maybe get McCullough matched up there because he's probably your best bigger defender. Juwan Harris is a great defender, but I don't think you're putting him on a 7-footer. What would you do to try to match up with some of that height defensively?
Yeah, well, I think Juwan's going to take Roach, right? And I think that's where you're going to kind of have your neutralizer in terms of Juwan. And then I do think you're right. I think Jalen Wilson will get some time on one of the big guys because in terms of his frame, right, you're not going to back Jalen Wilson down. He is too strong at this point in his career that's going to be tough for anyone to do. But the issue is that some of these Duke guys can shoot threes as well, but I think Kansas would take that. So, yeah, I think Jalen Wilson, Kevin McCullough are two guys that will probably play up in terms of the lineup, right? You think of McCullough being kind of a 2 and maybe he's playing more kind of closer to a 4, and KJ Adams is the guy that's going out and guarding maybe someone like Mark Mitchell, who's 6'8". I think that's probably what you'll see, and they're going to have to mix and match. Ernest Udeh is going to have a really good game, I think, just because, again, rebounding for me is almost the issue with KJ, less so than the rim protection. Can KU keep Duke off the offensive glass with KJ Adams on the floor? And that's going to take a whole group effort, but I think that's going to be the theme tonight. It's going to be, can the collective of Kansas really force the individual talent for Duke to not play as well as a collective? And I think that is going to be where their bread's going to be buttered. And I think it's going to come down to the guys like Jalen Wilson and Kevin McCullough and Juwan Harris really guarding and really playing well. And I think those guys are going to be up for the moment because I think, like Jalen Wilson says, and always says, you come to Kansas to play in games like this, and it's going to be really easy to be turned up for a game like this in an atmosphere like this.
3 guys didn't make the trip for KU. One of them probably not, just to be honest, not going to make much of a difference. Kyle Cuff is not going to play in the game. You also have MJ Rice, who due to an apparent illness did not make the trip. And Zach Clemens has a broken nose or, something on his face that is broken. So he also did not make the trip. What, if anything, is KU missing by not having really Rice and Clemens for this game?
Yeah, I think Rice might be the bigger loss for a game like this. We talked about the depth. I was so impressed by what you saw from him, particularly in the first half against North Dakota State. And I think that athleticism, that just natural physicality that MJ Rice brings will be a loss. Zach Clemens is harder to make out. It's just harder to figure out what his role is going to be. He wasn't really in the rotation in the first 2 games, right? He got a couple minutes in the first half and then really didn't get time until garbage time in the second half. So it's harder to maybe say what the loss is in Clemens because we just haven't really gotten a feel for what the coaches are looking for in terms of his role in the rotation. So I think Rice is definitely maybe the bigger loss if you're asking that, but I think it's just the wing depth, and it's going to make Jalen Wilson, Kevin McCullough, and Grady Dick, they're going to all play 32-plus minutes probably today. So they're all going to have to be ready for a long one. And I think, too, they don't play again until Friday. So it should be okay in terms of getting those guys high minutes.
For the best coverage of tonight's Champions Classic matchup for KU against Duke and always for Kansas Jayhawks Athletics, go follow Michael Swain's work at fog.net and follow him on Twitter as well at Swain, 24/7. Michael joins us every Tuesday for 23rd Street Brewery Jayhawk Weekly here on the show. Michael, as always, we appreciate the time. Enjoy watching the game tonight, and we will talk to you coming up on Tuesday.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Always enjoy it.
That is Michael Swain from 24/7 Sports and fog.net. I'm excited for the game tonight. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be an interesting test, really, for both sides. And we will preview that game coming up in the 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. We'll also get to some big Royals news. We already had one piece of news for you personnel-wise. We're going to lead off our 580 Sports Talk headlines with some news that I think most of us knew was coming, but is getting closer and closer to official after a release just moments ago by John Sherman. We'll talk about all that next hour on 580 Sports Talk.
Each day we choose to
now, 1 hour to go on this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you for the next hour as we finish up this edition of the program. Thank you so much for being a part of the show with us today. We would love for you to continue chiming in on anything you want to talk about or anything we are talking about today. Hit us up on the Big O Tires text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. You can also connect with us on YouTube. Sports on 580 WIBW is our YouTube channel. That is where we are live streaming the show today and every day. So head on over there, subscribe, bookmark, favorite, make it your homepage, invite your spouse, your kids, your parents to do the same. Why not? It's a fun place to be, or at least I would like to think so. We're getting darn close to 100 subscribers, by the way. We're getting close. We're building up. Brick by brick, day at a time. Coming up here in this hour of 580 Sports Talk, got a little Royals news, a little backseat Royals news we'll get to later on this hour. We will also preview the Champions Classic as KU takes on Duke tonight and Kentucky takes on Michigan State. I have no idea what to think about that game, to be honest with you. But first, we will start things off, as we always do in the 5 o'clock hour, with our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Brought to you, as always, by Blue Dot of Kansas. You can go visit them online at bluedotkansas.com. First story of the day. This is news, a statement that has come out within the last, 20 minutes or so. It was initially released by the Royals, 22 minutes ago, from John Sherman, an open letter from Royals chairman and CEO John Sherman. I will not read the entire thing to you, but if you're on social media, head to the Royals Twitter account, yes, the official one, Elon, and you will be able to see the entirety of this open letter.
Hit a couple of the high notes here.
Yeah.
So after a, gesture towards our excitement about the future and all of those things, as you may already know, it's become challenging to maintain the K. When its current lease with Jackson County concludes at the end of the decade, it will be 60 years old. The renovations required at the K to achieve our objectives would cost as much or more than the price tag to develop a new ballpark. The new home would be a far better investment, both for local taxpayer dollars already supporting our facility and for the Kansas City community. So this letter is an announcement. The Royals are moving. The Royals are going to build a new ballpark. They have some locations downtown that they are beginning to consider and that they look forward to public input regarding their vision for not just a ballpark, but really a ballpark district or a ballpark village. It would include local restaurants and shops, office spaces, hotels, and housing opportunities. And importantly, while it is noted here that this would be the largest public-private development project in Kansas City history, expected to be $2 billion as currently envisioned, it is also noted that, quote, we would not ask Jackson County citizens to contribute any more tax dollars than you already do today.
All right. So that's the big one right there. Now, I will say this. I have said this about the K moving out of the K to a new downtown ballpark. I have said this about renovations to Arrowhead Stadium as well, or a new football field somewhere for the Chiefs. I am extremely glad I do not live in Jackson County, Missouri, because I frankly don't put a lot of stock in this, to be completely honest with you. I appreciate that John Sherman came out and straight said, we're not going to ask for any more tax money than we already get. But
it's so the money, the public money is going to come from the fund that is already, that Jackson County residents are already taxed to maintain the Truman Sports Complex.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be that fund. Now, where the rest of the money comes from, it's going to be, looks like a big chunk of it's going to be private financing. Because I too am a big believer in, if you're really a billionaire, build your own damn ballpark.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you've got all your billionaire friends who are also minority owners in the team.
Right. Build your own ballpark. Don't ask me for any more money than I'm already contributing. Build your own ballpark. You got it. I don't. That's generally how I feel about any billionaire. I don't care who it is, coming to citizens hat in hand, asking for more money. That, to me, was the most encouraging thing I read in the whole thing, is we are not going to ask for any additional taxation to Jackson County residents. Even as a non-Jackson County resident, I was pleased to read that, at least from the top. But it is very clear that it's no longer just a what if. It's no longer just a, hey, this is trending in that direction. The Kansas City Royals are going to have a new ballpark, and they're going to play downtown somewhere in Kansas City.
Which is cool. I mean, as long as you're not asking the people who do not have a whole lot of money to spend for this stadium, I frankly don't care. And I know that sounds wrong. Honestly, like, I know the K is cool. I like the K. I think the K is a great park to watch a game.
It is, and I say this completely honestly. Obviously, I am biased, having grown up in the Denver area. Coors Field is my favorite place to watch a baseball game. It's always going to be my favorite place to watch a baseball game. Kauffman Stadium is second. And I haven't been to every ballpark, but I've been to Wrigley Field, and I've been to Dodger Stadium, and I've been to San Francisco, and I've been to some places with some really nice and some really highly regarded ballparks. And the K, still outside of my home park, it takes a cake for me. I think it's a fantastic place to watch a baseball game. I think the sight lines are clean. I think the modern amenities that they added to the stadium about a decade or so ago made it feel new and fresh without really impeding what made the stadium great in the first place.
Yep.
I also think it sucks to get there.
Awful. Truly awful.
It is not awesome to get to the Truman Sports Complex. And I am, again, biased here, coming from a city with a downtown ballpark. I love a downtown ballpark. I love the ability to enjoy a really nice meal at a local restaurant in lower downtown Denver, and then go see the Rockies game, and then go to a bar somewhere afterwards. And I don't have to get in my car. I don't have to do anything like that. It's all there. It's all walking distance. I can park my car, and I can have a full night out. I can have a meal before the game. I can go hang out after the game. I can go watch the ball game downtown. I can walk everywhere. I love that. I love a good downtown ballpark. And I think Kansas City has the potential to do a great downtown ballpark. What I think people will not love about a downtown ballpark is you lose the tailgate scene. There's just no way around that. Like, I don't care how big the parking garage you build is. You are going to lose that in all likelihood. It is just not going to be as prominent as it was beforehand. And that is, I mean, that was something that made going to the K special for a lot of people, is the ability to set up a baseball tailgate. You don't get a lot of that. That's unique, really, in a lot of ways to Kansas City. And I think that people will really miss that. But I think that there are a lot of positives to a brand new ballpark, a brand new downtown ballpark, particularly a ballpark district, if done right, can bolster downtown Kansas City, make it an even better place to build, to go out, to go do stuff. And I'm torn, just as somebody who observes this from afar, right? Like, I don't live there. That's not my hometown. That's not my favorite team. But as somebody who, I like to go to Kansas City. I like to go downtown. Like, I've been downtown to stuff there. I've been to games. I've been to shows. I've been to have dinner, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I have been to also a lot of Kansas City Royals games. And I am legitimately and truly emotionally torn on this one, because the K is really special, and it's a great place to watch a game. But it is also coming up on 60 years.
We've got a couple texts that I want to get to here.
Absolutely.
One from the 785 says, the other thing about Coors is you can take the light rail there. That makes it really nice. That is a city of Kansas City, Missouri element. And hell, KCK too. You know, you can have public transit go across the border. I want a commitment to better public transit in Kansas City, whether it's more freaking, whatever they call it, the rail car, whatever they call it.
The trolley car.
Yeah. Like, okay, if it's a bigger system for that, more buses, whatever, you can't build a subway system. I get that. But
yeah, public transportation, if again, you have to have the public support for it.
The infrastructure.
Yes. But that is certainly something that people in Kansas City should want, whether the ballpark is downtown or not.
Yeah.
I think they should want improved public transit. Like,
so
every city in America should want that.
Yeah. So that's a big one for me there. So I agree with our texter there. Another one from the 785 says, if they do it right, like at the Kansas Speedway, the developmental potential is incredible. They have built that up, the Legends area over
the Legends
Kansas
complex.
Speedway.
It's great. I mean, you could spend a whole day there and not go to a sporting event, which I think and the idea, I would think, is to build up something that even when the Royals are not at home, because it's 81 home games a year, right? There's 6 months out of the year the Royals aren't playing, but to make the ballpark area, that area around the ballpark, a place where you want to go. Like, I still have favorite restaurants I go to when I'm visiting my folks in Denver in the winter.
Yeah.
Like when the Rockies aren't around or not playing games. So that growth of the downtown area, so it's more than just power and light in the plaza, like, I think is a definite positive.
I think there's a lot of good that can come with a downtown ballpark. I think it's exciting. I don't have the emotional attachment to the K that a lot of people do. I like the K. I have a fun time going. It sucks to get to if you're on this side of the state line. It is just absolutely awful to get to. But, a downtown ballpark, if you're not going to make the people pay for it, or at least pay more than they have to for it, that is, or need to, I guess I should say, I'm fine with it. I don't know where exactly they're going to put it. They have some renderings. They put those on social media as well. I'm sure they're at Royals.com now, or will be shortly if they're not already. We knew this was coming, but it sounds like it's pretty much a guarantee at this point. Here's the other thing that this means, though. Chiefsville is coming. So be ready for that.
Yes.
Because when the Royals build the new park, wherever downtown, whether it's Power and Light, somewhere else, doesn't matter, wherever they build it, and when they move out and they raise Kauffman Stadium, that is going to become Chiefsville. They're going to continue to build up Arrowhead, improve it, modernize it, whatever, paint GEHA like graffiti on the side of the building, whatever they're going to do to it. The rest of the Truman Sports Complex is going to have bars. It's going to have, tailgate lots will look different. There are going to be entertainment venues. That's coming because everybody in the NFL is trending toward that now. We know of Patriot Place in Foxborough or just outside Foxborough.
All that development around SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles.
SoFi Stadium. Green Bay has Titletown, which isn't huge because Green Bay is not that big, but that's a developed district that continues to grow. That's coming to the Truman Sports Complex, and it's going to be Chiefsville or whatever you want to call it.
Public transportation to get to Royals games. You could also, try and get finally some better public transportation to get people out to Chiefsville.
That would be, I know it costs money, and this is something that, tax-wise, not to get into the political tax side of it, but that's something that taxes, that would actually benefit everybody, not just people who are going to go to the K or say, I don't want to pay for a ballpark. Public transit to get from downtown to Arrowhead more easily, that benefits everyone. Just to get around Kansas City, other than just, streetcar, that's what it is, the streetcar, from Power and Light to Westport for a very specific kind of clientele. Yeah, Kansas City could use that. So I think there's a lot of good that could come from this. We're still a long way away from knowing for sure, though, if that will actually be realized. But I think there's a reason to be excited here. Especially because we knew this was coming, and now this is kind of the stamp of, yep, we're underway.
And the renderings that were included in the press release or the open letter that are on social media, there had been some earlier renderings of a possible Kansas City ballpark district, and I hated them with every fiber of my being because there was nothing about the ballpark that looked like Kansas City. At least with these renderings, you've got the crown incorporated. You've got the fountains incorporated. Any new ballpark has to feel like Kansas City. And I don't think you can have a Kansas City ballpark without some fountains in the outfield.
No, I like the renderings. I think they look nice.
Those are more encouraging than the initial downtown Kansas City ballpark renderings, at least for me. And John Sherman does include in his letter that there will be conversations with community leaders, with fans, getting their input on, okay, what should a ballpark look like? What should a new park look like?
Who's the stadium going to be named for?
That is fascinating.
Because it ain't going to be you and Kauffman.
No, I don't believe it will be Kauffman Stadium.
There might be the Kauffman seats, on the first base dugout or something.
Right.
There's not going to be a family name attached to the stadium. I'm certain of that.
No, there is. It's likelier to be Cerner Field.
Yeah.
Garmin Stadium. We're heading in that direction. If they sold naming rights to Arrowhead, they'll definitely sell naming rights to the new Royal Stadium.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about that. No doubt. What other companies are in the area Farmland Foods Stadium, the Judge Group Stadium,
Jungle Law Field.
Oh, God. I've got this field at Mike DePasquale Stadium.
Brown and Crouppen Ballpark.
Oh, wow. Oh, it's going to be that. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be Brown and Crouppen Ballpark. I am certain of that. Oh, good. Now we know. That's nice.
The 913 suggested Oklahoma Joe's or Joe's Kansas City.
I'd be all right with that. Boulevard, I'm sure a lot of people will pitch for that. Based on
Boulevard Ballpark would own.
Yeah, that rule.
Because, and the thing that would make it great, too, especially, is it wouldn't sound like a corporate name.
No.
Like, Boulevard Ballpark would just sound like, it would sound a little cheesy, like a generic minor league stadium on MLB The Show, but it wouldn't sound corporate either.
No, that would fit.
That's my favorite one right now, actually. That's the leader in the clubhouse for me.
Although, given the way that NFL stadiums have been trending with Acrisure Stadium and Paycor Stadium, I just discovered a company called Amerisave Mortgage. It's going to be that. That might be what it is. Amerisave Ballpark.
No thanks.
Blech.
Let's get to another Blue Dot of Kansas headline here.
Let's do it.
There has been a lot of traction around the National Football League lately about a desire from players to play on natural grass fields. Players are getting a little bit fed up with some of the injuries, soft tissue injuries, ligament injuries that occur on a certain kind of turf field. Slit film turf, it is called. There are 7 teams in the league that use that, 6 stadiums that use it. The Saints, Colts, Bengals, Vikings, Lions, and then the MetLife Stadium in New York, which holds both Giants and Jets games, use this slit film turf. And the NFLPA has cited a higher rate of injuries on those surfaces and called for an immediate replacement and ban of all slit film turf. A lot of prominent NFL players have started to speak out about a desire to play on natural grass. The latest, Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, saying today, quote, "No, honestly, I don't have a lot of confidence when it comes to the league making that decision without some sort of big vote and gripes from certain owners who don't want to spend the money." He would go on to say, "This to me is player safety. Expanding to 17 games was about monetary gains. So this would be putting your money where your mouth is if player safety is important." More from Rodgers. "I do think it's time to go all grass throughout the league. I think you would see less of these non-contact injuries that we see on some of the surfaces. And I think it'd be a good step in the right direction towards player safety to make the requirement for every field to be grass."
Yeah, grass or a hybrid surface, because some stadiums use hybrids and it works. You know, the Packers have a hybrid. I know that's not a.
It's called cis grass.
Yeah, it's not a
synthetic fibers and a Kentucky bluegrass. That I don't know what you do with like the true domes, like New Orleans. Are they the only true dome left? Is everybody else either retractable or have enough light coming in that it's not like the old Astrodome or the Kingdome, where you had to play on the carpet?
Yeah, I believe it is. Mercedes-Benz?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. Well, you mean Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yeah, well, even then, though, like...
I know that's retractable.
Yeah.
They've got, the evil scope thing for the roof. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a name for it we can't say.
Yeah.
But even Arizona has a natural grass surface, and they just roll it out. Which, I mean, I don't know how you do that in like New Orleans.
No, that's the thing about Glendale. You know what else is in Glendale?
Nothing. No, they built the stadium with like the ability to do that. That was intentional. But so, yeah, I do think that players are right, though. If there are more instances of injury on a certain kind of turf surface, then they should get rid of that turf surface. They should try and play more games on grass. But it should be good quality grass. Like they played the Germany game on grass and everybody hated that surface. So, you got to make sure it's a good surface. But it does. I mean, that is a player safety issue if players are getting hurt.
We've got a question from the 785. Would water usage limits in Las Vegas apply to the NFL? Probably not. I mean, just being honest. They'll probably say, what do you mean water bill? What are you talking about?
Don't they have, what is their surface?
I'm actually not sure. I would not be surprised if they were able to move something in and out, though, because they're kind of off away from things.
So they do. They have a natural grass tray.
Okay.
That they move in and out at Allegiant Stadium. So Now, how they attend to that, what their water bill looks like, that is the question for Mark Davis.
Yeah, great question. Mark Davis might not also have an answer for that, to be completely honest with you. Another text from the 785 says, yeah, all for that. Tough for domes. Cardinals Park notwithstanding. That's a special case.
Yeah, Cardinals and the Raiders appear to have figured it out. But again, they were, purpose built to be able to do that. And it's hard to retrofit stadiums that weren't purpose built to have also a 120-yard field next to it that just sits out in the sun all the time.
Yeah, I agree with Rogers here. I don't think this is going to happen, at least not in a big, one big fell swoop, but we'll see. The players really want it, and I honestly do not blame them for that one bit. Real quick, let's get to a couple rapid-fire MLB headlines. We've got one more Royals one we'll get to later on in the hour featuring one Ryan O'Hearn. But a couple of quick rapid-fire pieces of info here. A couple of players accepted the qualifying offer from their MLB teams today. Texas Rangers lefty pitcher Martin Perez and San Francisco Giants outfielder Jock Peterson each accepted the one-year $19.65 million qualifying offer. Many players did not, though. That include Aaron Judge, Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts, Jacob deGrom, Dansby Swanson, Carlos Rodon, stay with me, Brandon Nimmo, Wilson Contreras, Chris Bassett, Nathan Eovaldi. All of those guys are now going to be free agents. Their teams will get some sort of compensation for that.
Tyler Anderson was a free agent for about 5 minutes.
Yes.
The all-star lefty for the Dodgers. He signed a 3-year contract today with the Los Angeles Angels.
Yep. So the Angels' problem's fixed. They signed Tyler Anderson. Also, the New York Yankees and first baseman Anthony Rizzo have agreed to a new multi-year deal worth a maximum of $51 million. He will get $34 million over each of the next 2 seasons with a club option for 2025 that includes a $6 million buyout. So he's got $40 million guaranteed with an option for that $17 million, 6 of which would offset in 2025. Rizzo had a really good year for the Yankees.
You love that short porch in right field. And
understandably so.
He might be a player who sees an uptick in batting average with the new rules regarding the shift.
There's no doubt he is going to see an increase in that. Teams have been shifting him for a long time. Apparently, from Jeff Passan, he has also developed a really good relationship with Aaron Judge. Will that be enough? Probably not, because he's going to get $500 million from someone, but you might as well try. One other real quick thing here, unless, do you have another headline?
I do not.
Then one last quick thing here from Matt Galloway, friend of the program, formerly the Kansas Jayhawks beat writer for the CJOnline.com website. He tweeted, he's a huge Royals guy, huge Royals fan. He tweeted in response to the Royals open letter from John Sherman. You asked for input, so here's mine. There's nothing wrong with Kauffman Stadium, still one of the best ballparks in the sport, and in all that text, you didn't convince me that demolishing it and building somewhere else is necessary. Hard pass. Want more people to visit your ballpark? Try producing more than 4 winning seasons in a 29-year span. That's a good trick.
No, that's fact. The best-looking ballparks are ones where winning teams play.
No doubt about that. Let's take a time out here on 580 Sports Talk. Big thanks to Blue Dot, as always, for sponsoring our 580 Sports Talk headlines. When we come back on the other side of this break, we will look ahead to tonight's Champions Classic. KU taking on Duke, Kentucky versus Michigan State. All that is next on 580 Sports Talk. 5:33 on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan here with you on this Tuesday afternoon. Thank you so much for spending some of your afternoon with us. Champions Classic tonight, 6 o'clock, I believe is the original scheduled start time. I don't believe it's 7, but I can look that up to be especially sure of it. No, not Michigan. Michigan State. Michigan would be even better fit than Michigan State at this point for this.
Yeah, it
thing.
is. It's a 6 o'clock Central scheduled tip-off between Kentucky and Michigan State.
So KU and Duke as the nightcap, scheduled for 8:30. It is almost always late, so expect tip-off sometime after 8:30. Let's start with KU and Duke, though, for this matchup tonight. And I think, when we talked about this with Michael Swain, I think the obvious concern here for KU is the size more than anything else. Duke's got multiple 7-footers and a couple dudes who are 6'10" or above. KU starts a 6'7" center. That is obviously going to be a concern for this team. Ernest Uday is going to see plenty of minutes. I think the ceiling is the roof for Ernest Uday. Okay, like he's got so much potential. He is massive. He can jump. There's a lot of Azubuike in him. I'm not saying he's going to be Udoka Azubuike because Doak is going to get his name in the rafters sometime in the next several years. But there's a lot of potential there with Uday. A lot of it. He's just so raw. And I don't know how his rawness and KJ Adams' size and offensive deficiencies will match up against this size for Duke. The counter to that, though, if Grady Dick gets hot, KU can score with anybody in the country. And if Jalen Wilson shoots the ball well from downtown as well. KU is really good getting out in transition. I think this is a fascinating matchup. I don't know how much we'll learn about these two teams because, February 15th, these teams are going to be far different than they'll look on November 15th. But I do think this is an interesting early season test. And like I mentioned earlier, I do hope that this is maybe a slightly more clean game than we often get in the Champions Classic because both teams have already played a couple of games.
I think that will be a factor. I think you will see a little bit more smoothness, a little less of the sloppiness and choppiness that often characterizes these Champions Classic games. I am really interested in that size matchup too, because I remember the KU Duke, and of course you remember, another rhetorical question. Of course you remember this. Remember when KU Duke played in the regional final in 2018?
Oh, very well.
Duke was huge, and KU played Svi Mikhailuk at the 4.
And had him guard Marvin Bagley all game?
Yeah, had him guard Marvin Bagley. Svi I think he had a career high in rebounds that game.
I think he did.
So it is fascinating to think about something very similar in that Duke is so big.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're going to play the former Bishop Miege Stagg, Mark Mitchell at the 3, and he's 6'8". So they're going to be really, really big up front. The thing about a big team is they're going to try and get a lot of easy baskets. The thing you can try and do is produce a lot of ball pressure, try and double if you can. If you don't respect their 3-point shooting, their perimeter shooting, you can try and double on the catch in the post. And with those big teams, something that you might like to do is try and run them and really get out in transition. So it is a bit of a clash of styles necessitated by the fact that Kansas just doesn't have a lot of size and a lot of experience size to this point. I am also going to be fascinated to see how, the freshmen, because this is the big stage. That's also the other thing that's really neat about these first big games of the year, because the first time that the spotlight is really on you, if you're Grady Dick or if you're all those young guys, Mitchell, Derek Lively's the number 1 recruit in the country. This will just be his second game. He missed the first one. He's still kind of working his way back from an injury, but for Duke, it'll be Derek Lively's first time in the spotlight. So I'm always fascinated to see how Kansas's players and how Duke's players too handle that spotlight, handle the sold out crowd in the neutral site. And it feels like an NCAA tournament game in a way in November. So how do they handle that? How do they deal with that pressure?
We heard the quote. Michael shared it with us earlier, and Jalen Wilson has said this a bunch over the last season or so. You come to, and Bill Self has said this too, you come to Kansas to play in these games. I hope the situation isn't too big. And Grady Dick was asked about this after KU's win over North Dakota State last week. and said, hey, look, I've played in big games before. I've been in these big AAU games or high school games or whatever. And obviously there's a difference there, but I would imagine that guy in particular is going to play with plenty of confidence and is not going to be scared of it or, not going to become a shrinking violet under the lights. That's what my hope is anyway. I would expect that to be the case. I will take KU to win. I gave the score earlier when I was cross-talking with Mike Dupp. I gave 72-71 KU. I don't think it'll be an especially high-scoring game because these contests generally aren't. I think it'll be fun. I think it's an interesting matchup. If both teams play their game, I think it'll be an interesting clash of styles. I will take KU's firepower for now. I think the coaching staff will get it figured out. I don't know. By the way, so we know Bill Self cannot coach the game. And as of midnight last night into today, he had to have no contact with the team.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Goodman was tweeting about that today like it was some sort of impassioned news breaking, and then adds in, sources tell Stadium Bill Self is staying at a different hotel. Were you camped outside the Marriott downtown Indianapolis, dude? Nobody cared. Why are you reporting this? Anyway, that's beside the point. I imagine the game plan, though, both while Self was there and that has been really hammered home during shoot-around and whatnot today, from Norm Roberts, Jeremy Case, Joe Dooley, and Brady Morningstar. That's your four-man KU bench, by the way, right now. I would imagine they are just hammering home, do what we can do. Do not, don't do stupid things trying to make up for the size differential. Do what we can do. I think KU's got enough to get it done, so I'll take them by a 1-point win, but I think it's something of a toss-up. I think both these games are toss-up. I have no idea what to make of Kentucky, Michigan State. I think Kentucky's pretty good, but I don't know.
I hope we get to see Oscar. Oscar Tshiebwe has yet to debut this season, and National Player of the Year candidate, and I hope we get to see him back on the floor just in general sooner rather than later, because I think he's a great player and a fun watch. But he is warming up tonight, so there is a chance that he makes his season debut. I know Michigan State played Gonzaga really close. They played that game on an aircraft carrier.
With a lot of wind.
They weren't guarding the perimeter. And A, Gonzaga's not a great perimeter shooting team, but B, they were playing on an aircraft carrier. You got to throw that game out. That game shouldn't count in the standings. I know that they've still got a Hauser running around out there at Michigan State. I'm sure they got some really tough guards that Tom Izzo's going to scream at. I don't know what to make of Michigan State right now. Kentucky should be better. Kentucky should have more talent. I think Kentucky wins that game.
By the way, for what it's worth, in case there was any curiosity, Jack Pilgrim, who is the basketball-specific beat writer for Kentucky Sports Radio, said he is going to play. So, sounds like we will see Tshiebwe. He is a freak. He is truly a beast. And West Virginia screwed up losing him.
I guess I'll be the contrarian. I'll say Duke wins the other game tonight. They're 2.5-point favorites right now on FanDuel. That line's ticked up a point in Duke's favor, actually, today. And I do think the size advantage might be something that they're just able to use and really wear on. And not just on offense, but to make it really hard for Kansas to get easy offense. Now, KU could turn it into a 3-point shooting contest. And if Jalen Wilson stays hot from back there and Grady Dick gets hot and they get 1 or 2 from DeJuan Harris or somebody like that,
McCullough maybe
gets going, then I do think that they've certainly got a chance. And maybe this is a game where the experience of guys like Wilson and McCullough really matters if it gets down to crunch time.
Good point.
So, but I'll be the contrarian. I'll say Duke finds a way with their size, especially if they get Derek Lively really activated in a way that he hasn't been able to be yet in this young season. But it is a 2.5-point line on FanDuel. The Kansas money line is plus 115. The over/under is 145.5. And now is a perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's free bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just sign up with my promo code Lucero. They've got all of those money line, point spread bets, player props tonight for KU and Duke as well. You can combine them into same-game parlays for your chance to win big, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So sign up today with my promo code Lucero for your no-sweat first bet. That's Lucero. Make every moment more this season with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. You must be 21 and present in Kansas. First online real money wager only. Refund issues non-withdrawable free bets. It expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
You know what else you can bet on tonight?
What's that?
Jalen Wilson rebound prop. You know I'm riding with that tonight.
I believe it's 8.5 at FanDuel.
I'm taking it. I do not care. I am taking it.
He's gone over that number twice in 2 games.
Your dart already has. We're going to take another time out here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, we've been teasing some Royals news. If you love Ryan O'Hearn, 1, you're apparently one of a kind, or his mom. 2, if you don't, you're not going to love this news that the Royals have today. We'll talk about it next on 580 Sports Talk. Finishing up this edition of 580 Sports Talk, Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero here with you on this Tuesday, November 15th. The Kansas City Royals, they have brought back or are in the process of bringing back a beloved recent player.
We had a text earlier when we were talking about the news about the now inevitability, I think is an appropriate word to use, the inevitability of the Royals moving to downtown. And we had a texter from the 913 on the Big O Tires text line say, can't they spend the money on players instead?
Yeah.
Well, here's $1.4 million for Ryan O'Hearn. Do you like this? The Royals today and all teams across Major League Baseball have to finalize their 40-man rosters today add players to the 40-man roster they want to have protected from the upcoming Rule 5 draft. This was the day to finalize your 40-man rosters and start preparing for the offseason to really begin in earnest. The Royals added 3 players to their 40-man roster. Most notable guy was Alec Marsh, formerly a really highly touted guy who still struck out 11 guys per 9 last year. Also went 1-16 with an ERA north of 6. Pitching development just going swimmingly all across all levels of the Kansas City Royals back in the before the pre-Matt Quatrero era. So they added 3. They dropped 3 from the 40-man, including Jake Brentz, maybe the most notable guy. Doesn't sound like Brentz is going to be recovered enough to pitch until late next year, so they're hoping they can bring him back on a minor league deal and not have to stash him on the 40-man roster all year, even on the 60-day DL, or IL, excuse me. And then there was one last tidbit from the Royals. They have avoided arbitration with Ryan O'Hearn by signing him to a 1-year contract worth $1.4 million, which is, in fact, a $100,000 raise for Ryan O'Hearn.
That's awesome. That's really great. We have a texter from the 785 who says, so I'm guessing Ryan O'Hearn's services, such as they are, have been retained. The best question here is why? Must have dirt on someone. Here is probably the reason why. And Dan, you thought of this while we were just shooting the breeze in the office today and this news broke. And David Lesky, friend of the program, covers the Royals for Royals Review, Inside the Crown, all that jazz. He put this on Twitter earlier today. His final thoughts, because he does not have the energy to keep up with continuing to talk about Ryan O'Hearn. His weighted on base average with no shift last year was 405. That's good. Weighted on base average is on the same scale as on base percentage.
Yeah, that's really good.
323 in 2022. That's why they're going to try to keep him around, probably, because there are new rules about the shift. You can't do it to the same degree. He's been an average to above average on base guy-ish with no shift in place. So maybe there's still something there.
I'd take the left fielder and put him in short right field and dare him to go oppo. Or I just pull the right fielder in, because it's not like Ryan O'Hearn hit with a lot of power. This last year, he had 1 home run in 145 plate appearances.
Yeah, he's not exactly a speed guy either.
After hitting 26 home runs in his first 2 major league seasons, O'Hearn has 12 home runs in the last 3. And I know one of those was the COVID year, but he's got an OPS plus of 70 out of a possible 100. He's been 30 points below league average over the last 4 seasons. That includes 2019 all the way through 2022. There is no defensive utility here. He is not an exceptional glove man at first base or in either of the outfield corners. And there is no obvious path for him to get at bats, even as a left-handed complement in a platoon, because the guys he'd be taking at bats from, like Vinny Pasquantino or MJ Melendez or Nick Pratto, also happen to be left-handed. So I don't get it. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I feel bad for coming down on Ryan O'Hearn because he had a really great response to all of this on Twitter. He posted the image meme of Homer Simpson backing up and disappearing into the shrubbery, talking about, hey, maybe today will be a good day to open Twitter. No, back up. Put the phone down, Ryan. People are not being very kind to you, and hand up, myself included. But yeah, I don't understand why they are so bent on keeping him on the 40-man roster, because in a perfect world, like Nick Pratto wins a job in spring training and he plays first base, and Pasquantino DHs and Salvi catches, and MJ Melendez plays left field, and one of your young guys like Drew Waters gets more outfield at bats, and Ryan O'Hearn is a $1.4 million lawn ornament on the 26-man roster. Like, where's he going to play?
Could have saved that money and put it toward a new stadium.
You really could have. That could have been like, I don't know, one fountain.
Yeah, it could have, I don't know, been a couple better concession stands. It could have been paying the, concessions workers.
But I do think that what David Lesky pointed out does have some value, because it does show that the Royals are thinking out possibly
looking at data to drive decisions.
Yes, analyzing some data and saying, hey, we think the lack of a shift could unlock something with Ryan O'Hearn, and it's worth, because $1.4 million is pocket change.
Yeah.
it's worth that to see. You may feel differently.
I agree with the thought. I really do. I understand the thought behind, hey, let's try it. Let's try something new. And I will be fair and say I can appreciate that. I just don't think he's a good baseball player. But maybe we'll be wrong. Maybe without a shift, he'll turn into something usable. We're going to take one more time out. We'll wrap up 580 Sports Talk after this with the final word. Let's wrap up 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday with the final word. You are up first, Dan.
I know it's not their first game of the season like it has been in previous years, but still, the Champions Classic to me, and I'm sure to many of you, feels like the unofficial tip-off of the college basketball season. It is certainly the first marquee matchups of the college basketball season. Very excited to see Michigan State, Kentucky tonight, and hopefully I can stay up for all of Kansas and Duke. It won't be too far delayed. Again, I'm picking Duke tonight. I think their size advantage will be a little bit too much, but if Kansas makes their threes and gets out in transition, I think they've got an opportunity to win this one too.
Yeah, I'll stick with the Champions Classic as well. This will be the first game where we sort of get a look at where KU is at this part of the season. In a way that games against Omaha, North Dakota State, and then Friday against Southern Utah really aren't able to do. We'll get to see KU against a bigger team, a team with a lot of athleticism, size, strength, speed, all of that. I think KU can win this game. I'll take KU to win it. I think it's going to be a toss-up kind of contest, but we're going to know a lot about both KU and Duke by the time this game is over tonight, somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 o'clock Central Time, maybe. I guess we'll find out here in a few hours. We are back tomorrow with more 580 Sports Talk from 3 until 6. But until then, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. Appreciate you guys joining us once again today on 580 Sports Talk.